Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Well, how'd you like that weekend without football? I mean, there was a little football because we had the high school games Thursday and Friday, had some preseason games Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Jordan Love didn't play. Zach Wilson got sacked for a safety, but threw a touchdown pass. What does it all mean? Will Wilson make the Bronco roster? Will they only keep two quarterbacks and it won't be him? What will happen? How about Tim Patrick getting in the end zone? That guy's had so many injuries. It's unbelievable. All right, we'll get to all the football coming up. Right now, though, we're going to start with a little soccer. Kurt Schmid, Chief Soccer Officer for RSL, joining PK and I to talk about a flurry of moves at the summer transfer window deadline. Here's Kurt Schmid from RSL with PK and I. I think a lot of people are wondering, how is RSL with 9 games left in the season? Gomez had 13 goals and 9 assists. He's gone, but there's no depth up front. You've probably got 2 new starters and 3 new pieces for those 4 attacking players. Is the team better today than it was when the transfer window opened?
Yeah, look, everything we do, we want to make the team better. And I think we've got an increased level of depth, an increased level of competition amongst the squad. I think we've added talent to the group, overall. So I think we've raised both our floor and our ceiling, even though it's going to certainly look a little bit different with departures and incomings. But I think we've been able to successfully raise both of those things.
With the time off in games, is it a good time to do this, to maybe have opportunities to mesh everybody together?
Yeah, I mean, look, this gap in games is probably not ideal from a lot of standpoint. It's just a big rhythm killer, but it's helped us, I think, work on some things tactically and have a little bit of a mini preseason. Not everyone is already in, but there are a few guys in already that have begun to mesh and gel with the team. Jermaine's been in. Benji's obviously here. Diogo has been training a little bit as we're waiting for some paperwork. So it's been good to get those guys settled in.
So you mentioned Diogo, and it seems like he could, if he clicks, have a massive impact on this team. The number 10 attacking midfielder right in the middle of everything. Where should fans set their expectation for him?
I mean, wherever they want. But I think, I think we expect him to contribute quite a bit to the attack in terms of setting guys up, in terms of finishing plays. We needed another piece in the midfield that could add to our attack and just be more dangerous. And I think when we've got more guys that can hurt teams, then it becomes a lot more difficult to shut down any single one of them. You know, if they're worried about Chicho, then you've got Diogo, then you've got Diego, you've got Crooks, you've got whoever we end up playing on the right between Dominic and the other options. If they worry about Diogo, you got Chicho freeing up, you got Crooks finding space. So it's difficult for them to shut any one guy down when you've got so many weapons.
These guys have been playing this sport for a long time. Obviously, that's the way it works across all professional ranks. They've been literally playing it virtually their whole lives. I'm wondering, with that in mind, you bring up Chicho, you bring up Crooks and all this stuff. How long does it take to understand the tendencies and the mindset of guys that you're playing with to making sure you're all together? Pablo's talked about scanning the field and making sure that you're staying ahead of the game, so to speak. I'm just wondering, how long does that take before it can come together?
It really depends on the individual. And look, I think part of the job that Pablo and staff are doing, and they've done so well this year, is by really specifying and simplifying players' roles and being very clear with what they are so that players can accomplish their job. And as long as they have trust that everyone's going to accomplish, their job, they can do their own business and everything's going to turn out okay. And so by simplifying the roles and making it tailored to that player's skill sets within our system, it makes it a lot easier for them to settle in. And so, if we're being very clear with them, then they know what to do. If we were a little more free-flowing, maybe it would take a little bit longer because, like you said, it becomes more about tendencies and getting used to each other. But while there is always an element of that, I think you can get around some of it by being very clear and specific with them.
Obviously, attacking players get judged on goals and assists. There's no way to get around those numbers. But at the same time, Pablo has preached high pressure, never given teams a second to breathe. As soon as they win the ball, you're trying to win it back from them. Diogo, Dominic, Lachlan Brook, How good are these guys at pressing, and how quickly can the group be good? To PK's point about chemistry, you have to know when it's on, when it's not. When one guy goes, does everybody go with him? How good are these guys defensively and pressure from all the film you've watched and the games you've scouted?
Yeah, I think there were probably two things that were relatively high on our list. One is versatility. I think everyone we've signed adds an element of versatility, but the other one is what you just highlighted, which is the willingness to press. And if we couldn't see that in video of them playing, at their previous stops, then it wasn't really something that interests us. So finding guys like Diogo, like Lachlan, like Dominic, that we felt comfortable were, attacking players, but that we're going to add on the defensive side and give us that defensive work rate and pressing ability, we wouldn't have brought those guys in.
With this much time with no games, how do you guys manage to make sure the guys are not over practice, but still doing enough to maintain conditioning and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously we lean on sort of the sports science side quite a bit in terms of the rhythm and the microcycle, making sure that, you're not pushing them too hard. You got to push them hard enough that it pushes outside their comfort zone, but then let them come back into it so they can regroup. So we are working towards sort of, even though we're going a couple weeks without games, we're trying to be on a little bit of a game rhythm. We're going to play sort of a bigger 11-a-side tomorrow just to kind of put it on the same rhythm as a season with a Saturday sort of game. So we're just trying to do little things to keep them in rhythm, but obviously push them a little bit harder during the week because we don't have a game where we need to peak on the weekend. And so we can push them a little harder during this past week. And as we head into next week, we can taper off and make sure the guys are fresh and ready to perform on game day.
There's a lot of negatives to having this much time off. Is it good for the league? Is it good for the business? There are playing dates that could be really useful to clubs, and they've been knocked out of the tournament, and they can't use these Saturdays in the summer before the NFL starts and college football gets going. We can get into all of that. But just for this year, for this team, I did have people really close to the team who I think know a lot more soccer than me say the team is really tired. And just from a results perspective, the last 5 games, all competitions, 1 win, 3 losses, and then you had the 1-1 game in L.A. So the team wasn't really getting results and points at a very good clip, and people are saying it's tired. Is this break really a break for the club, given how things were going?
Yeah, I think they're always double-edged swords. Like you said, rest is a key factor there, but rhythm is another one, and consistency. And so you're kind of battling both those things because they're kind of pulling at opposite ends of the spectrum. But yeah, the team had been worked pretty hard. There was a couple injuries along the back line, and along with sort of not having quite as many depth pieces, which is obviously why we brought some guys in that could compete and push and impact the games off the bench. But not having as many of those in the last couple months has certainly, caused some guys to log a lot of minutes. And while that's good, again, from a consistency, form, and rhythm standpoint, eventually it does wear on you, and there's not just a physical fatigue, but there's a mental fatigue. And so I think this break can hopefully alleviate some of that with our guys, and we've now brought in more competition, and hopefully that'll sharpen us all up as we get into the rhythm for the stretch run.
Has Pablo's golf game gotten better during this time off?
Oof, probably. I mean, I don't know, because I'm a terrible evaluator of golf games, as I'm not an avid golfer.
Take the fifth on that one. Just pass.
Last person to ask. I am.
Are you sleeping better now? Because where you bring people in from Australia, I figure they're 7 hours. They're 7 hours behind tomorrow. It's super confusing. My wife has a college friend. I can never follow it. But it's like, careful! You're about to call them at 4 a.m. or they're about to call you at 2 a.m. or something. And then in Europe, were you literally negotiating around the clock here, given the fact you're bringing somebody in from Poland and Australia?
Australia was not quite so troublesome, spot on about the time difference, but you just gotta work later into the late afternoon and the evening, and then first thing in the morning maybe you can do some stuff. But that wasn't as tough. The Poland, I was probably living the last few days on the Polish time zone, so that wasn't ideal for my sleep habits, but hopefully I can get back to a normal rhythm here too myself.
When we come back, we'll hear from the coordinators at Utah and BYU. The defensive coordinators, are coming up next. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. The Utes kick off the college football season in 10 days. We're almost down to single digits. 12 days to the first full Saturday of college football. We've got a little college football right now with the Ute and Cougar defensive coordinators. Let's start with Jay Hill.
You're feeling great about right now with the defense?
There's certain players that I think are playing at a super high level. They would be the ones you would expect. Batty. I think Blake Mangelson's got way better. John Nelson, the interior of the D-line I really like right now. Jacob Robinson's had a really good camp so far. I like the battle going on with the safeties right now. They're all getting better. I think we're much better in that room than last year, and we're deeper, so that's good.
What's concerning you?
Depth at certain spots. We need a couple backers to still step up. Depth there. There's some talent in that group, but we need someone to solidify. We need some guys to solidify themselves. And the corner group, I would say the same thing. We just need that third, fourth, fifth corner to really step up.
Is Mark Collins trending to where he could play in game?
Oh, yeah. So Mark Collins had a really good day today, and I like where Evan Johnson's been this camp. Jonathan Kumbea stepped up, so we just need those guys to really solidify themselves as third, fourth, fifth corners in the Big 12.
What will be the determining factor in who's in the two deep at safety, since that is a deep?
Obviously playmaking, who's making the most plays tomorrow's going to be a big deal, and then also just the ones who know the defense the best.
Is tomorrow a 100-plus play scrimmage again like last week?
I think it will be a little bit shorter. We need an opportunity to be under the lights a little bit, get a feel for the stadium, all that, and more than anything, just one more opportunity for some of the guys to tackle.
You doing a night scrimmage?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
You talk about tackling, and we don't see everything that you guys do, but how is the team looking at that with what you've been able to evaluate?
Yeah, so I think we're way ahead of last year at this point. And last year, actually, I think we're a much improved tackle team from the years before. So I think we're better. Time will tell when we get into the second scrimmage tomorrow and then into games, obviously. But so far through camp, I think we're improved.
Do you have set metrics you try and look at as far as missed tackles, as far as limiting extra yardage after contact?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So anything under 10, 10 missed tackles a game, anything under that is solid. I think you're really elite if you're getting six or less missed tackles in a game. If you're bleeding up into that 13, 14 or higher, then that's too many. It's excessive, and it's really poor if it's over 20 a game.
We were just talking to Caleb, and he was talking about going up against Batty every day and what that's like. It's like seeing those two battle and benefiting each other just as far as helping Batty get better.
Well, first off, I think Coach Woods has done an amazing job with the offensive line. I see their physicality. I like their techniques right now. Caleb's really improved. So to watch that battle with those guys it's fun for us. Each day we get to watch one-on-ones. We say it's kind of one of the great parts of the day, just kicking your feet up, drinking a Mountain Dew and watching one-on-ones, watching those guys battle. So that's one of our favorite parts of the day.
So Mountain Dew is the drink of choice then?
Oh, yeah. Nectar of the gods. I don't know if I can say that at BYU, but I think, well, oh, yeah, I better be careful. I really better be careful then, huh? Yeah, okay.
Just out about what the BYU offense has done from your perspective defending them.
Well, I really like what our offensive coaches do. They're always changing. They're multiple. They use a bunch of personnel groupings. I think we're way deeper in the wide receiver group, the tight end group, the running back group right now. So you just see such a mix and match of all the different varieties that they throw at you. They're doing a good job running the ball right now. The throw game can hurt you in so many different ways, shallow to deep. And the creativity of the offensive coaches I like. So there's a lot that I can't wait for the fans to see this year.
For the record, I agree with your Mountain Dew take.
Okay, yeah.
Jack Kelly looks really comfortable out there, just in his positioning, and he looks to be getting more and more so. Is that a matter of him being familiar with you and your coaching style from obviously 2 stops, or is he just kind of that fast of a learner, I guess?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a reason why I wanted Jack Kelly here, right? He's a great player. He's instinctive. He runs. He's physical. And I can't wait to see him play in the Big 12. So I think the fans are going to like what they see from him. I like what I see. I think his comfort level in this defense shows up on the practice field because he's been doing this for a while now.
What's his story in terms of how you got him to Weber State and now he's become this P4 guy that's going to fit in?
Well, he was committed originally to Utah State, and I really thought he was a steal for them. And then just through the coaching changes and some of the stuff that occurred at Utah State, he kind of slipped through the cracks, and he was one I loved from his junior year, and so we were always kind of hovering, waiting, and when the opportunity arose, I mean, we pounced on that one. He was one I wanted from the get-go, and then right from day one when he stepped onto Weber State's campus, he was one of our strongest guys, one of the guys that showed the most promise, and he's played a lot of football now. So,
Jay, I've asked you this before, and I'll ask it again probably, but how's this team doing at knowing when to take chances defensively?
Not good enough yet. I still think we are trying to be so assignment sound right now that we're not necessarily learning when to cut loose. That comes from experience. It also comes from film study and also comfort in the defense. And that's where I think we can still take the biggest step forward, is just letting it rip, cutting loose, and just going to making plays.
Where do you feel like the defense can improve the most between now and game 1?
That, what I just mentioned, cutting loose, attacking what they see. We can be more assignment sound, and then we're always working on pad level, technique, toughness, just those things that will always be things that we're always stressing. We can continue to get better at that.
There's BYU defensive coordinator Jay Hill. Now here's the Utes defensive coordinator Morgan Scalley.
Morgan, you sent 2 safeties to the NFL, so that is an obvious priority to rebuild that position. How's it going?
Very well, very well. Guys that have had some experience, Teo at the nickel spot has progressed quite well. The physical aspect of it, him coming down in the box, that's something he's had to get used to, but he's put on the weight, looking really good. Nate Ritchie's a guy that's already started for us. John O'Hall had meaningful time last year for us. Rabbit Evans has made a ton of progress. And so feel really good with Alakai Gilman. That's a high IQ football player. We've got 5 guys vying for 2 spots, and I feel really good about where we're at. Not comfortable enough to say we've named 2 starters yet, but excited about those 5.
Are you okay rotating as many as 5 of them if you need to?
Preferably not. You'd like to get 2 to get into a rhythm, but we have had 3 safety groups in the past. That's where kind of Sione Vaki got his first playing time was his freshman year as that 3rd safety. So, putting the right 11 on the field is the first priority, and if that right 11 is 3 safeties, then that'll be it.
What have you seen from Kenan Johnson? Obviously he transferred in, but he seems like he's already making a big impact on the defense. I mean, walk me through what he's done this fall.
Yeah, the biggest thing with Kenan is he brings that experience and the accumulated reps at the corner position, great quickness, the ability to, the recovery speed's all, huge in our defense. We've got to keep him healthy. The ankle's been an issue for him here and there, but for the most part, he's looking, like he can be that guy opposite Zamiah.
How does a Florida high school kid who played at Georgia Tech end up at Utah for his final year? How did the recruiting there work?
Well, you'd have to ask Sharif on how that went. In terms of my meeting with him, he wanted a program that was going to be able to continue to develop him, but also an opportunity to play right away. We don't give out promises, so he knew that coming in that he was going to have to compete for that spot, and he's still working to compete for that spot. So love what he brings to the table, but I think our culture here, what we do defensively, as much man coverage as we play, a lot of that played into it, and then obviously his relationship with Coach Shaw.
You guys have a lot of depth in the linebacker room, maybe even the most in the conference. How are you guys sort of approaching that with so many different levels of playmakers? I mean, is it is there going to be solidified starters for each game, or is it going to be more of a rotational emphasis with, depending on who you're facing?
The best two will play in nickel, the best three will play in 4-3. And right now, Lander and Karene have the two spots solidified. Sione Fotu is in 4-3, been a very good player for us. So everyone knows that when you're part of a good football team, there's not everyone's going to start. So Colton Swanson did a nice job with that room, developing those guys, helping them understand that only 2 to 3 can play at one time.
In the Pac-12, you face some elite skill players, but Utah won a lot of games with being the more physical team and the tougher team and pulling games out. Now you go to the Big 12 where it's a little different, and especially this year it looks like there's multiple good running backs behind good offensive lines. Is it going to be a different test for the defense, a different style of ball as far as the toughness and physicality you'll face?
Don't know. I mean, our priority has always been to stop the run first, and if we can do that, then you force teams to throw a little bit more on you. There are some very good running backs in this league, some very good offensive lines, but we feel like we stack up well in that category, the physical component of what we do defensively. So there are different offenses that we face. Again, scouting these guys, each team that we play, they bring something different each week. And so just like the Pac-12, you've got to be able to be multiple in what you do, which you've seen us play 4-3, play nickel, play some dime, play some 3 safety packages, and we've got good enough players to be able to do it.
What have you seen from a guy like Isaac Wilson? Obviously, you're on the defensive side, but, he's a freshman that's obviously made a big impact already on the defensive end. How hard has he been to defend, and what have you seen from him early on?
Well, what you see is what usually happens: early mistakes, but not a lack of confidence. His coaches trust and believe in him and work through those issues, and that was no different than Alex Smith when I played. He threw some early interceptions, and he learned from that. But good judgment comes from experience, and a lot of experience comes from bad judgment. So he had a really good scrimmage this last scrimmage, I can tell you that, playing with a lot of confidence, and he's improving quite a bit.
Yeah. Andy mentioned that they are essentially wrapping up the install, looking at some Southern Utah stuff in the next couple of days. Where along the process are you guys in that?
So we've been, a lot of the scout work that we do has been our first 3 opponents. There is, at least within our first 2 opponents, there's quite a bit of similarity in scheme. Utah State brings a little bit more of the spread component, but now, we're honing in on Southern Utah.
We asked you at the outset of training camp about your confidence in your defensive line. Has your opinion changed at all in the weeks since?
Has not changed. Very good at the D-tackle spot. Love the leadership that's coming from that room, and Keanu Tanavasa and Junior Tafuna. We've got vets in that room, so we should feel pretty good about it. I love the defensive end room. The opportunity there to be able to rush for and not necessarily have to bring pressure. We bring pressure depending on what we see from an offense, but it's nice to know that we can get home with 4.
Is there any new guys in that type defensive end that you feel like is kind of helping you guys right now?
Oh, man. You don't want to leave anyone out, but again, Van being healthy, Connor being healthy, Logan is almost 100%. Kipakana brings something in, perhaps a 3rd down package for you. Paul Fitzgerald, it looks really good. Cash Dillon is a freshman. My goodness, he's going to be special. And then you got John Henry Daly, and you got good night. I'm going to forget someone, and someone's going to have their feelings hurt. But it's a good room. It's a good room.
That linebacker room, Karene, Lander, we know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you've seen development in the 2s and 3s behind them?
No question. Yeah, Sione Fotu and Trey Reynolds that you have there, and some younger guys. Obviously Hunter Andrews left, but you got Kenai Lopes and Josh Calvert is as smart as they come. He can play all 3 positions, so definitely feel comfortable with that group.
Teo Johnson's a guy kind of almost had a similar path that you did. Played on the offensive end of the ball, switches to become a defensive back. How is he learning that development curve of being a safety, and what have you been able to help him with throughout this transition?
Well, Yeah, the development is, first of all, knowing your alignment assignment technique as a safety. Then it becomes understanding where you fit in the grand scheme of things, and ultimately how an offense is trying to manipulate you. There's a lot to learn there outside of just, he was a quarterback versus I was more of a running back. Right. So just the physicality of things, and he's put on weight, and we've thrown him down in the box on purpose. We want to, make sure that he's getting that, the hitting and the taking on blocks and all that stuff, and he's done well.
Where's your leadership coming from this fall?
Right now, again, I would say the D tackles, Counter Navasa, Junior Tafuna, but Karene Reed's as good of a leader as we've had. Love what he brings to the table. Nate Ritchie at the safety position. DN's Connor O'Toole and Van. So, really good group of guys, good leaders in each room was what you're looking for, and we've got it.
A lot of players have talked about the culture, the defensive culture here standing out as a reason why they came here or why they enjoy it here. What makes the defensive culture here so special?
Man, you got a few hours?
Yeah.
No, we it's something that we harp on every day. Culture is what you believe, how you behave, and it's the experience that's delivered by that behavior. The experience that they get is awesome, and I think that's why they keep coming back. They're held accountable, but they also know we love them. And yeah, so much goes into that in terms of not only teaching them how to become a better football player, but a better person, and anyway, we'll leave it at that. It's a long one.
Logan Fano is obviously coming back from his third ACL tear, and he came back pretty quickly from this one. What, I guess, surprised you about his recovery in this room and so forth?
It's an individual deal. I had no idea when he'd be available, but he's available, and he's worked his butt off. And usually guys that want to be back, get back.
Right.
Sooner, as opposed to milking it or he is a guy that we've been careful with how we've used him in the process of coming back, but he doesn't look like he's missing anything.
DJ and PK is proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. When we come back, David Locke coming up next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We are joined now by David Locke. His weekly appearance is brought to you by the Murdoch Auto Team. David, good morning.
Good morning, guys. I will be honest, I'd rather be in Maui not talking to you than in Salt Lake Park City talking to you, but I do love talking to you.
That's weird because on my phone just came up, how photos will come up? It just came up the Maui trip that we took in January. I'm literally looking at it right now, and you brought it up, Maui.
There you go.
That's
so,
weird.
I'll be really honest. I miss you guys not enough to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning in Maui to see you or to talk to you. If I'm being honest.
I miss you enough to where I would travel to Maui to stay with you.
That is so heartwarming. Do you like me enough to? Never mind. We won't find out how far you go.
To visit you in Maui? Yes.
Yeah, and if it's my place and I'm paying for it, you're really willing to come, right?
Oh, then I'm madly in love.
Okay, good. Just wanted to check. Just wanted to make sure I understood the parameters which we're speaking of here.
That's what friends are for.
He gets pictures of Maui. What popped up on my computer right as you started talking, the NFL kept its most advanced data hidden for years. Now it's finally on sale. The NFL, always one more way to make a buck. Would you pay for NFL analytics? Do you love analytics that much?
Well, I pay for NBA analytics, so I don't see why I wouldn't pay for NFL analytics.
Work is the easy answer to that. The NBA stuff helps you work.
Yeah, I would probably pay for a lot of the NBA analytics anyway.
Okay.
What are they putting out there?
I don't know. It's a Wall Street Journal story. I haven't read it yet.
Oh,
it just popped up.
Wow, look at you subscribing to the Wall Street Journal.
No, it's on Twitter. I'm not subscribing to the Wall Street Journal. If I did, I would know it, but I don't. Just popped up. It's essentially an ad. All right, the Utah Jazz made a bunch of moves since you were, or while you were out sunning yourself and golfing and going to the beach in Maui. Do you expect more moves before the season starts?
No.
This is it. This is the team.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the NBA is dormant right now. It's kind of like sacrilegious to make a move right now. This is the one time everybody, I think, takes vacation, gets time off, and all of that. So I can't imagine. I mean, obviously something could happen in training camp, but most teams that are pretty optimistic of where they are. I can't think of a team right now that's in desperate need of something that we have. Now something could change and someone gets hurt or something happens, and then suddenly somebody that's on our roster right now doesn't look appealing to anyone else, and then I guess so that's someone calling us. And then I guess the other answer is, what's ever going to happen with Brandon Ingram? I don't see that play making sense for us right now. So, at this point, I think the 2024-25 season is going to be largely about finding out what we have in 6 different players. And that's going to be the delicate dance for Will Hardy of, no free minutes and playing with a purpose. At the same time, with 3 first-round draft picks coming in the upcoming draft, we really need to have a pretty clear idea as best you can on the rookies. But on 7 players, really, I guess, Keontae, Taylor, Bryce, and Walker, along with the 3 rookies.
Yeah, I totally agree. How about the philosophy then? And, we understand you've spoken about it. We've referenced it many times of the no free minutes, but maybe allowing them to play through more mistakes.
Yeah, I think you earn that, though, right? So if you've shown, like last year, if we take Taylor, for example, Taylor in camp compared to Kelly and John Collins, it wasn't close, right? And so that's really free minutes. If he had just, if Will had just announced Taylor Hendricks is our 9th pick and he's going to start and play 26 minutes a night no matter what, that's really free minutes. I would hope that we come to camp this year, Taylor with the experience he gained last year, little growth, the body looked way better. Our strength and conditioning staff, I thought, did an incredible job. I thought he looked really different in Summer League. And he comes out, and it's clear that, he's probably the best power forward we have, or, depending how you're going to play him as a 4-3 with Lowry, and he's earned that. Then I think you start to give him some leeway. But you can't just get the minutes and then get the leeway also. Like, Keontae's probably at this point earned the leeway, right? Like, he's going to be our starting point guard or one of our starting guards. And he's 2 for 11, putting out the effort, but not shooting it well. You leave him out there.
Right. I buy that. And the others haven't yet, but they've got to do it.
What you can't do, though, and the key to that was he's putting out the effort. Like, I don't care who these young guys are. When they come out in game 34 and we're in New Orleans after 3 days off in New Orleans, woo! And, you're running around like dead man walking, like, you got to pull that. Because the minute that gets acceptable, you've got a tough road to get over that. Once you start allowing that, you're in trouble. And I think the biggest lesson recently from any team is what happened with Houston. And what happened with Houston was that they had all these young players. They were awful. Under maybe Steven Silas is a great guy, but there's a feeling he lacks in direction as a head coach. And Jalen Green was abundantly available at the trade deadline this year. And then all of a sudden, he goes nuts in the second half of the season, where he's now played under Ime Udoka, played under structure, played with Dylan Brooks, played with Fred VanVleet, played with veteran players. The offense starts to run around Alfred and Şengün, then Şengün gets hurt, and Jalen Green goes nuts. And you're like, oh, that's why we drafted him number 2. But they were within, a taker of trading him at the deadline, because in the 2.5 years of non-structured, no expectation, no standard basketball, he looked awful, and they were about to quit on him because they didn't want to extend him at the end of this year. Boy, that could have been a really catastrophic error. And you just got to make sure that your guys are in a structure where you can actually evaluate them. And I think that's why re-signing Lowry is so important, because I would like to forget every minute I saw from Keontae George last year without Jordan Clarkson and Lowry Markkanen on the floor, because I generally think they were unfair. Like, here's a guy who's probably the 175th or 200th best player in the NBA last year, and you're asking him to be the best player on the floor? Well, he looked like crap doing it, not studying. And so I'd like to erase that from my memory, along with every high school song lyric and phone number that I still have, and get that off my hard drive so that it doesn't impact my thought process when I think of Keontae, because I just think those were unfair minutes. But if we had traded Lowry, that's a structure by which a player has any chance to show if he's getting any better.
Are all of these young guys going to be with the Jazz, or are some of them ticketed to the G League, or do we get to watch them all develop, for better or worse?
I think the roster is set in a manner that it's available for all of them to be with the Jazz if they play well and have decent camps. And then I feel like there's a player that's sitting behind each one of them that is not dramatically different or brings a little something that would allow, hey, you know what, why don't you go play 30 minutes a night instead of 12 in the G League this week? Patty Mills is going to play backup point guard. Why don't you go, Kyle Filipowski, why don't you go play Drew Eubanks is going to play? Like, they're viable, solid NBA players who know how to play. Eubanks was really quite good in some stuff in Phoenix last year to dig into the second-tier numbers. And so I think you have the ability, like, Isaiah Collier, if he has a good camp, comes out ready, yeah, it'd be nice to see him for 15, 20 minutes a night as your backup point guard. On the other end, if there's a moment where he feels like he's getting overwhelmed, or there's some value to having him actually play 30 and have him actually kind of lead a team, or maybe shoot a little bit more or work on his shot a little bit more, I think you have a roster that allows you the flexibility to do that. And the same thing with Bryce and Cody. Luke, totally viable NBA player. You can play him, and you could get Cody and Bryce down to the G League to get time if you want it.
What do you think the philosophy is behind the Mills signing?
I think Will already loves him from his time in San Antonio. And so I think in a year in which there will likely be more L's than W's, it's really valuable to have guys on the roster that will hold things together and set a model and do things the right way. Like, it's really a problem if your 13th, 14th, and 15th guys are leading people astray. And so I think, the Eubanks, Luke, Mills signings are all guys that have impeccable reputations of how they conduct themselves as professionals and how they do things. And in the case of, I think, both Eubanks and Mills, people in our organization have seen them work day to day. So I think that's the concept behind it. And then also they're viable so that if, in fact, an injury or someone wears out or someone needs a break, you can play them.
15 back-to-backs, 7 and 8 game homestands and road trips. Aside from your personal comfort, does that matter for the team at all as they go through rebuild mode, or the schedule is really less important than ever, especially because you don't even know what looks like a hard game on paper? The other team may sit 2 guys, and it changes everything anyway.
Yeah, no, I think, obviously I want as many road games as possible prior to Christmas is always my rule. Keep me in Utah from Christmas to April 15th as much as possible, please. only just a little addiction problem I have that I need to, deal with. But so the schedule is good in that. I think we played like 18 of our 41 road games before Christmas. So I'm very pleased. I think, there's a stretch in December that looks like it could be really brutal, but actually we don't know because the NBA Cup games. But if you can kind of see where the hockey team is, and the hockey team is, I think, home for the front half of that little stretch. So I would assume that we're playing another road game, then home for one, and then back out for 5. Like, I think if you now look at December and assume that it's a home game on the first spot for the NBA Cup and then a road game for the second, I think, don't we do something kind of crazy like play 14 or 15 games in different cities like that? Something of that sort?
Yeah, something of that sort. There could be a lot of time on the road.
So, I think that's just that'll probably be the make or break part of the season. It could probably start. I haven't looked at who our opponents are in that sense. Could probably start okay, surprise some people, win some games, and then that stretch when the margins are tight and then you start to get worn down is probably where things could make or break.
How much do you think that the Jazz are communicating with Markkanen about the plans or potential plans? He's a great player. He's signed on, but obviously he's looking at least one, if not 2 more seasons of heavy losing before they can start to get better. And I'm just wondering if he accepts it based on the knowledge that they've given him. What do you think of that theory?
Communicated with him well. That communication is a little difficult, right? You can't really tell them we're never going to trade you because that's not true. So, I don't know exactly what you're, we believe in you. Here's $200 million. Okay, well, that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
We want you here. That's true until someone offers us something that's better for our franchise, and then we're going to trade you. That's just the reality. That's not Lowry. That's just the truth in the league. It's really the truth for everybody, including Luka Doncic, except for the fact that there's no package that's available to Dallas ever that would be better than Luka Doncic, so he kind of knows he'll never be traded. And seemingly the same thing with Giannis in Milwaukee, but again, you never know. They have a bad year this year, then they're against they're going to trade Giannis, right? So I think you're communicating with him, but it's like you don't want to be on the hook for just lying to someone. I always think the one that I am skeptical of is when the player says, "Oh, the team said they'd send me to the best situation for me." I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's really true. I don't think any team's ever actually said that. That might be what you heard, but I'm pretty certain that's not what they think they said. So I always hear that at trade deadline, like, "Oh, so-and-so's a liar. They said they'd send you to the da-da-da, and I went to, Minnesota. And why they said I'd go to a good place." Like, oh, well, maybe they deemed Minnesota a good place. So I always think that's a little questionable when I hear that from someone because I just am not entirely sure I think that's true. So I think you have to be really careful. But I mean, Lowry in his Holly Rowe interview on the Lofo or Front Row podcast and in some of his other quotes, I mean, he seems like he's got it. Like, okay, I'm going to be the man. We're going to have a hard time winning games. We're going to try to win as soon as we can. And I really like Utah, so let's see what we got.
Do you think he'd really like Utah if he went on a trip with you to Maui? Or do you think that would he'd start changing his ranking of the states here in the old US of A?
Well, I'm not sure what you're really asking there. Lowry would have a perfectly good time if he came on a trip with our family to Maui. And his kids would too, because his kids are super cute and my kids would play with him all the time. So he'd get all his time off and we'd just play with his kids. So he'd be great.
More likely to go on a Maui trip with you, me, PK, or Lowry?
Unquestionably PK.
There it is,
he
PK.
He might get in my suitcase.
Well, I don't know what to say.
You've rendered PK speechless. Good work, David.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. What can I have a quick? I need a quick. It's August. I need my quick Cliff Note summary. Utah, top of the Big 12. BYU, near the bottom. Give me the why on each.
Utah's done a lot of winning the last 5 years, and there is not a team with the pedigree and the consistency and the roster that they have, so they get the top spot. Oklahoma State and Kansas State get a lot of respect, so it's not going to be easy or a slam dunk, but they are definitely the favorite going in. For BYU, they were 2-7 in the league, and they still haven't named a starting quarterback, and that alone, those two things alone, will put you in the bottom third of the league.
Which of those two do you think is most likely to be wrong?
I think there's a better chance that BYU moves to the middle than Utah moves to the middle, if that's what you're getting at. I mean, if Cam gets hurt, Oklahoma State and Kansas State can win that league in a heartbeat. There's not that big a gap.
And then Big 12 question, are Oklahoma State and Kansas State actually any good?
Yeah.
I mean, like how good? Like, are they top? What are they really? Like, if they're in the SEC, are they finishing fourth or are they finishing ninth?
Yeah, that's really hard to measure now because these leagues, it looks like they're really not going to play each other very much. So there's very little data. They're all in their own bubbles.
If they're in the Big 10, are they finishing fourth or are they finishing ninth?
Fourth. I don't think the middle. I don't know that the middle of the Big Ten's that good, and I'm not sure I buy that. The top's very good, as I think the playoffs have shown.
So you figure in the SEC, Kansas State and Oklahoma State might be ninth. In the Big 10, they might be fourth.
I don't know about ninth. That seems a long way.
Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, Alabama.
I don't know that Oklahoma's great, but okay. Texas has already lost their top two running backs.
Okay.
I think LSU's got to reload a bit, so they might be down a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of big brands there, but I don't know that they're all going to be great at the same time.
Okay. One of those Mississippis is all fired up. Our SEC people are all fired up.
Yep.
I was listening to our SEC preview the other night, so it's fine.
Yeah. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know. News update. This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NFL.
Mahomes keeps it, goes behind the back. Kelsey's got it for the first down. How do you like that?
Long story short, Travis didn't run the route he was supposed to run, and then it was kind of a behind-the-back pass, kind of because I was mad. I was pissed off at Travis. He was supposed to run a flat route. I don't know if you can hear me on the broadcast. I'm yelling at him, and then he doesn't run it. So out of spite, I do a behind-the-back pass, but now it's going to be a highlight.
Patrick Mahomes, wheeling and dealing, behind the back. It's Travis Kelce's fault / credit.
Yeah, I was pissed off. He didn't run the route he's supposed to run. Pissed me off, too, when you think about it. Practice all this time and you only run the route. Come on.
Denver Broncos beat the Green Bay Packers 27-2. Jordan Love didn't play for the Packers. The only points for Green Bay came when they sacked Zach Wilson for a safety in the third quarter. He threw a touchdown pass in the fourth as he tries to earn a spot on the Broncos roster. The former Ute, Jonah Ellis, with a sack and a forced fumble. Andy recovered it. He's going to play in the NFL for a while, isn't he, PK?
Hey, he already is.
It's all set up.
That's why he left early. Start making big money.
Making the big money, making plays. They have Cody Barton there, too, now. They got a collection of former Utah players.
Plus, my favorite team.
Zach.
And Devon Vele.
Devon Vele trying to make that team as well. And I'm forgetting the name of the other receiver.
Patrick?
Yes, Tim Patrick. Touchdown catch for him. Big celebration for him, and a lot of guys happy for him after tearing his Achilles and tearing his ACL and not playing football for 2 years. So, tons of Broncos there. The Raiders are going to start Gardner Minshew week 1. He beats out Aiden O'Connell, so he's the starter for game 1 for the Raiders. Antonio Pierce made the announcement. The experience of Minshew is entering his 6th NFL season. Gives him an edge in camp. So he's the guy for the Raiders. And Tyreek Hill went to social media to encourage Team USA track star Noah Lyles to race him in a 50-yard sprint. Lyles said to podcast that Tyreek is just chasing clout. There's no way a football player is going to beat a track star in a 50-yard sprint, right? Not that they're probably going to do it. So. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college football.
I am very confident in the trajectory of the offense right now. In no way, shape, or form are we comfortable with where we are, but I've seen major improvements all across the board from each position group. We got a lot of work to do, but again, confident in what I'm seeing on the practice field right now.
That's Andy Ludwig, the Utah offensive coordinator. Likes the O-line, obviously. Good to have Cam back at quarterback. And he is pumped up about the way things are trending at Utah.
So are you, man. Listening to that Locke interview that we just had, you said if Cam gets hurt, that K-State and Oklahoma State could win. There's not that big of a gap. That means if he's healthy, they can't beat him?
No, they could.
But the way you made it sound.
Well, I can't help how you take it. I just told you, yes, Kansas State and Oklahoma State can beat Utah even if Cam is healthy.
Oh, I think you can help how people take what you say. I would disagree with that 100%.
Well, you've said the other a million times, but okay.
That's me, though. That's not you.
Okay. 2 sets of rules.
Well, yeah. I think that if I were Andy Ludwig, I would be moving towards comfortability. If you're not comfortable now, you're never comfortable. You're never going to have this much experience for the rest of your life.
6th-year players.
Yeah. 25 years old.
They seem common across college football now, but it seems like that's about to slow dramatically.
When is the next time Utah is going to have a 25-year-old at quarterback?
Oof. Probably not for a long time.
Yeah.
Boise State announced their quarterback, and the starter will be American Forks Maddox Madsen. He beats out Malachi Nelson, the 5-star prospect who was a big prep star down in Southern California, went to USC, was supposed to be the next big thing. But he took off, and now he's been beaten out by the former AF Caveman star. How good is high school football in Utah, and is it getting even better? We will get to that coming up.
Must be. This is a significant achievement for the young man. What does he do with it? Sort of like with the BYU thing here. One guy wins it, the other guy doesn't, so there's massive disappointment. But what does that mean? You go back toward the COVID year. I mean, it doesn't really count. And I don't think it counts, as Kyle has said. It counts for some, but for others who had political motives that they thought were right, then they didn't play. Cam Rising gets hurt in the first quarter and is out. Now, there wasn't a season, but if there would have been one, he would have been out. The point being that the loser of this competition, this is the time to sulk for about 5 minutes and then really, really bear down for the rest of the time. Because your time will come. There will be a time that Nelson gets out on the field and has the opportunity if he succeeds. Now, Maddox gets the first one, and let's see what he can do with it. Can he hold on to it? He's a sophomore, right?
Yeah, he's a third-year sophomore.
Yeah, so can he hold on to it for the next couple years? It's his opportunity, man. But at the same time, he almost has to act like he didn't win the job to make sure that his edge is still there every day. It's a great achievement, but it's also having achieved nothing at the same time.
That's great. You took one step up the staircase. Now keep climbing those stairs.
Yeah. So when you have these competitions that you have, I don't know, 20, 30%, 40% in college football, I don't know how many across the board do you have quarterback competitions. You certainly have them. The exception of Cam Rising, you probably have them every couple of years. And really, you should have it every year from that perspective. If you're the coaches, you would want that every year. bring in another guy who's trying to beat out whoever that person is, whoever the starter is. That's the way it works in this biz.
Athletic director news. New Mexico's athletic director, Eddie Nunez, leaves to take the vacant AD job at Houston. He hired Bronco Mendenhall. Bronco hasn't even coached his first game there for the Lobos, and he's already going to have a new AD. The guy who hired him, who's usually the guy who gives you the most cover, gone.
Yeah, but if you win,
it won't matter.
I mean, Harlan didn't hire Whittingham,
but he wins.
And he loves him.
Well, and where Nunez is going, Willie Fritz was hired by a previous AD who just got whacked. So.
Yeah, there you go, man. He's now dead. He sleeps with the fishes.
Soprano style. Godfather. Louisville Cardinal wide receiver Colin Lacey suffered a broken collarbone. He's out an extended period of time. Expected to be Louisville's top wideout. And a transfer portal signing from South Alabama. Barely gets there and he's out. And injuries piling up for a lot of schools are losing impact guys, or at least guys they think will be impact guys. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NBA.
The Olympics paying off for the French forward, Gershon Yabusele. Parlaying his strong showing at Paris for Team France into a one-year, $2.1 million deal. He is in the NBA with the Philadelphia 76ers. He was with the Celtics, a first-round pick back in 2016. They waived him in 2019. He's been overseas since. He's back, baby, riding the Olympics to a job.
I'll see what happens. I mean, he was going to have a job either way.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
And the pitch from Sonny Gray. Ohtani hammers one to right. This ball is deep. This ball's gone. It's in the Cardinal bullpen. Shohei Ohtani. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. He's hit another one. It's his 7th home run this month. His National League leading 39th. And the Dodgers have a 1-0 lead.
2-0 the count to Josh Young. Here's the pitch. Swinging a chopper left side, charged by Miranda. He's up with it, throws over to first. It pulls Santana off the bag. The ball gets away. Here comes Garcia. He scores. The Rangers win it in walk-off fashion by the final of 6-5.
McKinstry at second base. The pitch, swinging line drive. Base hit into left. McKinstry's being waved around third. Dominguez has a big arm. A hesitation. The throw home. Not in time. Tigers win. The Tigers walk it off in the Little League Classic in Williamsport. What a night.
Tigers 3-2 winners over the Yankees in front of all the kids at the Little League Classic. Also in there, you heard the Rangers get the 6-5 win over the Twins, and the Dodgers beat the Cardinals 2-1. St. Louis falling out of the wild card race. They've lost 6 out of 7. They're really struggling. The Dodgers, meanwhile, 3-game lead in the division. Kershaw's back, throwing 6 shutout innings for him, PK. Shohei's going deep. They got one of the best records in baseball, and they haven't had their guys. How good will they be as they get these guys back? Gonna break through and win it all, baby.
Who's coming back?
Mookie Betts is already back, isn't he?
Yeah.
Walker Buehler, is he back?
Yeah.
And Kershaw's back? They've added 3 big names they've already lost.
Yeah, they've been back. All 3 of them. They're ready to go.
Now, Freddie Freeman did sit out last night.
Jammed a finger on a ground ball. Not supposed to play tomorrow night, but he'll be back soon enough.
Yeah. I always felt they were going to win the division. That kind of payroll, you're not playing for second place.
Playing to win it all. 6 teams now separated by 1 game in the race for the best record, for whatever that is worth. A little bit of home field, I suppose, but not much. And the Dodgers are right in that mix, even though they've been shorthanded. So they keep it rolling. Bees lose to the Sacramento River Cats 8-4. Split a 6-game series 3-3. They're off today. They've got the Round Rock Express at home tomorrow night. DJ PK.
Hashtag golf.
Hideki Matsuyama wins the St. Jude Championship. Had a 5-shot lead heading into the final round. Still up 5 at the turn. Blew the whole lead and then came back with a couple of birdies right at the end. And he wins it by 2. 17 under. He knocks out Xander Schauffele and Victor Hovland. Hovland had the lead there briefly down the stretch. Tony Finau tied for 16th, 8 under par. He'll advance. 50 golfers advance now. They're in Colorado this week for the second of 3 weeks of the FedEx playoffs. Seen a bigger roller coaster than that for Matsuyama? Blow a 5-stroke lead, be all the way off the top spot on the leaderboard, and then come back and win the tournament. An eventful final 9 holes.
I did not see it.
DJ and PK, that is what is trending. There are the headlines brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. Coming up at 8 o'clock, Cam Mellor, Executive Director of the College Football Network, is going to join us, and we will talk about the upcoming season. 10 days now to the opener for the University of Utah. 12 days for most of college football with the Saturday openers. We'll talk with Cam at 8:05. The question of the day is next. Stay with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
Joining us on the program right now, Stuart Mandel, Editor-in-Chief of the Athletics College Football Coverage. Do you have a way too early Heisman list?
You know, of listenership interest, I did put Cam Rising as my sleeper Heisman candidate because I think he's off the map after missing all of last season. If Utah does have the kind of season we just talked about, wins the Big 12, goes to the playoff, obviously it'll mean he had a big season. And I think in this new format, the Heisman will probably go to somebody from a team that made the 12-team playoff.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hot Takes or Toast is brought to you by Siegfried and Jensen with 30 years of serving Utah. The question of the morning. Boise State announces that former American Fork Caveman quarterback Maddox Madison will be their starting quarterback. It's just one more sign of the continued growth of Utah high school football. Madsen beating out the USC transfer Malachi Nelson. I suppose the answer to this has to be yes, PK. I think specifically it shows a lot less option and a lot more high school teams willing to throw the ball, which for a long time that seemed to be the missing piece of the puzzle. There were lots of players getting scholarships offers out of Utah, and we'd hear coaches tell us that high school football here is getting better. Guys are bigger, stronger, faster, and the coaching's really good. But they weren't really throwing the ball. And now it seems like there's always a couple of prospects in the state of Utah. I suppose in any one class, maybe more than that. But Madsen, a prospect who's now won a starting job.
Was there any high school out there, football, where it's getting slower, weaker?
Yes. But I don't think that's because of football. I think that's because kids leave schools and go to schools that are better. So there are some teams where there's a massive disparity, and they get smoked.
In talent, you're talking about?
Yep.
Well, I think high school football would, on the whole, is there any place where it's worse than what it used to be?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Some places that you would think have a lot of people and should be cranking out college football players aren't. I'm not there, so I don't know what the answer to that would be.
You're not there? You should go there then.
No, I don't want to.
But then you can know the answer.
I could.
And that's important to you. You're an answer man. You have to have answers.
Feels like that should be a song. The Answer Man.
Oh, man. I was at a concert Saturday night. Jersey Boys. Oh, down in Tuacahn. Let me tell you, a guy asked me, how are you going to do the news now? I said, by the power of tapage. We already done it.
The digital universe, big shooter. Make the magic happen.
Yeah. It was a fine night, had by all that rain. But when it came time for showtime, the rain disappeared. God don't rain on Jersey Boys. What about you people, man? You ever feel bad? I mean, I don't you don't see no San Diego County boys. You don't see Utah County boys. But Jersey Boys, where I'm from. Yeah. Don't you people, what are you known for?
Beaches. Fry sauce.
Oh, I got beaches in Jersey, my man.
You got a few musicians in Utah County over the decades. Pick your generation.
Donnie and Marie. Yeah.
They were from Ogden.
Well, most people claim Utah County is where their base is at.
They got beaches in Jersey. Bet the beaches in Jersey are more famous than your freaking beaches.
Good for you.
Great for me, not good for me.
You got to pay to use your beaches. Sad.
That's sad?
Yes.
So
yeah,
they're
public access
upkeep?
for the win.
Yeah. Their upkeep, lifeguards, they're saving lives. You got to pay to save lives.
Got lifeguards on free beaches too.
And but not every time you go there ain't nobody there. They're boarded up. I feel sorry for you guys. And what's Utah known for? High school football, starting quarterbacks, starting, you name it. There's starters everywhere, at every position. That's good to be known for that. And now this young fella, was he a star at American Fork?
He was a star at American Fork, but in terms of like a prospect, he was more of a baseball guy. His dad, Eric Madsen, is the new head coach of UVU baseball. He's 5'10", lit it up in terms of stats, but didn't necessarily have the measurables that a lot of programs were desiring at the time.
Did BYU and Utah offer?
Not as far as I'm aware.
Not as far as he's aware. Oh, was that a mistake?
Well, it looks like it right now.
They want their 6'2" quarterbacks.
Sure, but this guy's the starting quarterback at the FBS level.
Yeah. You can't argue with that. He will be starting that first game. They play some dog in the first game, Georgia Southern or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So he should be able to be good right out of the chute. But I think this helps get the rep. It's another notch on the belt that there's big-time quality football here. And so you got this opportunity to spread the word. It's just like, I think it's a cumulative effect. And if you have more evidence, then you'll get the benefit of the doubt collectively. Like, okay, this guy makes it. Zach Wilson made it. Jaron Hall made it. Now, Zach's younger brother in the coming years will have an opportunity to make it. The Dart kid, he's made it. And so then if there's another prospect coming down the pike, even if he's not the perfect prospect, not this so-called 4 or 5 star. Well, hey, man, but this player, you start adding them up. You get the benefit of the doubt.
You get the rep. You can get quarterbacks in Utah. Go get one.
I feel like Detmer obviously won the Heisman, but all of his predecessors contributed to the publicity that is needed and the rep that is needed to be able to have that. You know, and when Detmer had come along, there was a couple of guys who had made it in the NFL. Obviously, Steve Young was there on his way to an extent. McMahon
already had the Super Bowl win.
And I think that, we viewed him as a very good quarterback. Most definitely could have been better, but had some injury issues. But when he was healthy, an off-the-charts leader and a very good enough, certainly. So I think all that stuff leads to Detmer. Well, yeah, they play good football out there. It's not just some crazy stuff that they used to see, scoring all these points. Well, man, you just knew. You didn't really see the games, but you saw the score come across. And you go, well, what kind of defense are they playing out there? How legit is it? Well, then when they go on and do it in the NFL, where everything is, supposed to be equal, obviously it's not, but everybody has the opportunity to be good. There isn't a wide variance of all the stuff that you may have had in college at that point. I think that leads to legitimacy. So then you've got this kid here, if he goes and lights it up, it's another notch. So all of the folks and young men who come after him, they'll get the opportunity more and more. And for the state, you couldn't really ask for anything more.
Now it's every position is produced in high school football.
That's what I'm saying.
This was the last frontier. So I guess McKay Hillstead would be the next guy who could show something. I'm trying to think of high school kids who were on rosters Maybe he'll have a chance to win that job down the road.
There's a kid down at San Diego State who got beat out by that freshman for your Aztecs. Timview product.
Well, yeah. I mean, not everyone is going to.
Yeah, but do we count here's
off the charts.
Here's a question for you, PK. What about Devin Brown? Do we count him even though he played the 1 year?
Loosely.
Okay.
It was. Yeah.
Do we count him if more high school juniors opt to come to Utah to get on a team because Utah's got the rep PK was just talking about?
Sure.
One school has it.
Well,
but how many schools can have it in a few years?
The next quarterback there at Corner Canyon had a very nice night the other night. Helaman Kasuga. Get to know that name.
Oh, I know the name. What are you looking at your phone now?
I'll tell you later.
Jeez. We kind of got the show to do.
Yep. But you're over there. Oh, I know the name.
Oh, man. Okay.
Is there any other recruitable quarterback besides Kasuga right now? I mean, Kasuga's still, he's not in the class, this upcoming class.
In this 2025 class.
What do you mean he's not in this upcoming class?
He's a junior, so he's not going to sign in December.
He's in the 26 recruiting cycle.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
I don't think there's a quarterback
they
in
get
25
recruited as juniors, though.
Oh yeah, yes, right. But I just wondered.
In fact, junior year they argue is the most important year.
It is.
As far as that goes. And that's when they really start to blossom. So this is his opportunity to have his most important season. And then it's just an evaluation process, not a discovery process as a senior.
And to your point, DJ, maybe his 25 class doesn't necessarily have like a headliner at the quarterback position, but like much like this Maddox Madsen kid, like I said, he was a baseball prospect in most people's eyes. Does somebody go the junior college or FCS level route and end up being a star that gets the opportunity to become that next big guy out of this class? That could be the situation you find yourself in.
I just think it's cool for the reputation of the high schools here. You guys are way into high school football, far more than I am. I mean, you guys do it every Friday. I don't, nor will I. And so you understand that. And it's fun to go and to see very nice high school football if you're into that. There was a time when I haven't been to it in that much in Utah, but in California, as you're coming up through the ranks as a sports writer.
You covered high school football and you were games every Friday.
Yeah. And where I was down in the South Bay in the L.A. area, there were some fields that didn't have lights, so they would play at 3 o'clock or.
So did you have to do the doubleheader? Mm-hmm. Go to the 3 o'clock game. That thing wraps up at 5 or 5:30. Mm-hmm. Get a quote, write it up. 7 o'clock. Let's go to a night game.
You're writing it at halftime of the second game.
Well, when we came to Utah, there were probably 5 or 6 high schools that didn't have lights. Copper Hills was new and didn't. West didn't. But all those schools, everybody's at night here now.
And actually, my assignment was L.A. City during the regular season, and there were some places where they just didn't play night games because it wasn't safe enough. It's sad to say, but that was the case. A lot of the schools, they would play in the daytime because there'd be less opportunity for trouble. So that led to that. And one of the schools that didn't have lights was a school called Narbonne, which Troy Williams went there. And the funny thing is, at that time, they sucked. They were so bad. They were known as a baseball school and not as a football school.
And times have changed?
Dramatically. Big-time prospects coming out of Narbonne now. I wonder if they have lights. I don't know. I haven't been by the school in many years. So I used to do their games. They'd have to be a home game, obviously. So I'd do their games and then hustle over to San Pedro High or wherever, Banning, Carson, whatever the assignment was. And it went from week to week. And now Narbonne is an absolute big-time player in high school football to where they're producing a lot of talent. And that was very, very cool to see their transformation. And it's all, you're kind of jammed in there. So if you go to one school versus the other, it's like maybe you're traveling 2 or 3 extra miles. It's not a other side of the county thing that they had. But when I was there, they weren't that good. But there were other schools that were good. You know, I saw John Walsh play extensively in high school. I saw Sarkeesian was over there at West Torrance. Saw him play. There's a couple of local names here that people obviously would remember. And so there was a buzz. And I'm not involved in the high school football now, but I assume that among the high schools, there is a buzz. For those who are into it, there is a buzz. Hey, I'm going to see these players. This is a big game as we get going here on the 24 season, right? We're only 1 week into it, but we'll have big games, and you'll have people there. And then I think it's really important, too, for the local schools, the colleges, because I think that they can benefit greatly from that, and they can piggyback interest and attention, because I think if you're local and you stay local, I think you generate more buzz. Like Cam Rising has a lot of buzz, right? But if he would have gone to pick whatever school, he would have more buzz in that way because people would have been following him. Well, at 25, you would have literally been following him for 10 years.
It's a built-in fan base because of the high school, all the people who cross paths in youth football, the opponents in high school. It does. It gives it more juice.
That's why I think it's so important for you to get them. You can't get every one of them. It doesn't work that way now more so than ever. I don't know this young man's history here. You're telling me he was more of a baseball guy and is a smaller dude. I have no idea if he was recruited by the locals. I don't remember. I didn't even, when I saw this come out, now to me, when this story came out, it was like, oh, Malachi Nelson didn't win the job.
Right. It was such a big deal when he transferred. Right.
It was like, what? Hold on. This guy got beat out? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, and I'd heard of him when he was in high school in the Orange County area and heard of him when he had gone to SC and he had all the star makings as far as that goes. So, but the funny thing is this came out yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spencer Danielson made the announcement.
Right. And I was down in the St. George area. And so when I get back home in the evening, that's when I start to catch up on all the stuff that's going on, right? And I do that, and that's that I thought, oh, Nelson lost the job. This is a true story. So Nelson lost the job again. So he didn't win it at SC. He didn't win it at Boise. That's not like his career's over. I think he's still classified as a freshman.
Correct.
So he's got, like I was saying earlier, he's got time to do his thing. So it's not like, oh well, he's been labeled a bust already. Let's back off on that. There's plenty to go. He's not a junior or senior here. And then so I saw that was the hook that got me into the story. And then I see, oh, Maddox Madsen.
Did that ring a bell?
It vaguely did.
It did?
Yes.
You watched enough high school football that that sunk in with you?
Yes. I heard the name. I thought, I've heard the name. How did I hear the name? It's not like it was an hour. It was just a few minutes. So then I go to the internet, and life is much easier to gain information these days. And sure enough, that's why I heard the name. But it's not like, I'm sure you two, you knew the name immediately. I did not.
Not only that, what happened when I found out about it was because somebody else at work saw it first and literally told me, hey, the American Fork kid, Maddox Matz. I mean, it registered with, somebody who's either shot or edited our high school football written scripts. That was the first words out of their mouth. Yeah, American Fork kid.
So I couldn't have told you what school, but then I looked and saw it.
So if you're watching for a quarterback this year, the one who seems to be ranked the highest is the Lehigh quarterback.
Jet New,
who was just on TV lighting up Davis.
They were committed to?
I do not know. Who?
Appalachian State.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's going to Boone, North Carolina.
Well, we'll see if he's going.
We'll see. He's currently committed there, yeah.
If he keeps lighting it up, who else will step in? But that goes to your point, PK. Appalachian State's on the other side of the country. How are they finding out about a quarterback in Utah? The rep's growing. Because
they got mountains, though, and so we got mountains.
They have hills.
So the mountains is the connection.
Don't tell those people in Boone, North Carolina.
I know.
They got themselves some mountains.
It's a different kind of mountain.
It's
Lower.
aren't there the Appalachian Mountains?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean that's the obvious connection. Other than that, I have no freaking idea.
All right, PK, I'm going to give you a blast from the past real quick. You talk about a guy who you could see play out a career over 10 years, essentially like what you're talking about with Cam Rising, if you'd seen him when he was 15. Matt Payne, former BYU kicker.
And punter for a while.
And punter.
Did he punt?
Yes, he did.
This is going to make us feel old.
Here we go. I was at the Weber High School Westlake football game on Friday night watching that play out. There's a little 14-year-old freshman playing quarterback for Weber High School. Not on the roster I had online, so I walk around, I see Matt, I'm like, hey, you know who the quarterback is? He's like, yeah, that's my son Carter. He's a 14-year-old freshman who passed for 333 yards and 3 touchdowns in his first career start. So if you want to talk about a guy you could watch over the next 10 years develop,
I will.
That's a name to file away.
He may have some size because Matt was a big kid. His brother kicked at BYU too.
Well, and his older brother Tyler's a senior on that team and is a 6'3" linebacker.
Yeah, Matt was a big dude.
Yes.
Am I mixing up specialists at BYU, or did he go over to the sideline and drop something?
No, that was him.
Back to Boise.
Yeah.
He missed a kick that would have won a game at Boise, and then he knocked out that punt returner twice, or kick returner twice.
Oh yeah, in the press box there. It was like, whoa. I mean, you're audible, everybody. You're not supposed to make noise in the press box. But when Payne came over and lit him up, you're like, wow, this is funny. And you heard the audible, oh, throughout the stadium there. I was at that game that you're speaking of. I think the kick went a little left at the end.
It did.
So, yeah, Payne was a physical guy. He was the kicker and all that, but he had some size to him and he could move. So the genes there, I assume, are being passed on to his youngster.
He's got 2 sons already. So one Logan's already at BYU. Tyler's committed to the Y, and then this Carter, who's his 3rd son, is a freshman quarterback. So you want to talk about a rep of quarterbacks, BK? That could be one to watch over the next 3 to 4 years.
Carter
Payne. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. I'll file that away. And
if you go to Yock's Twitter feed, you'll see him throwing a long touchdown pass. Yock posted that.
You got to check back in a couple of years, see when it really heats up. I mean, by the time if he goes on a mission.
Oh, yeah. As I say, you want to talk about a 10-year progression, PK.
By the time he's ready for college, I'll be dead. So I probably won't be able to see him at that point if he follows through. I think his father went on a mission, didn't he?
Yeah,
if I can remember.
Uncle Mitch was also a kicker there at BYU. So,
and I remember that Boise game very, very well now that you bring it up. And one of the things that stood out to me is Matt Payne came out and answered for it. He didn't duck anything. And I thought, that's what I'm talking about. You hit a game winner.
It's easy to come out and take a bow.
Who was the 11-year-old who kicked the game winner for Kalani's first game?
Oh, yeah. Jake the Make.
Yeah.
The 11-year-old.
Well, he looked like he was 13. Let's be real.
Yeah,
13 you've upgraded. 11.
Jake Oldroyd's his name.
We're in the Cardinals press room there doing that, and I asked him, how old are you? And I literally asked, how old are you? Because he looks so young. Well, of course you're going to interview him on that, and it's a game-winning kick, blah, blah, blah. But Matt Payne, as a man, showed me something when he came out. I remember him specifically walking out, and we're outside there and forming like a half circle with all the media guys, and he came right to it, answered all the questions, whatever you had for him, and owned the miss. And I thought, that was something. You know, a college kid that wasn't getting paid, and not like they are today and all that stuff. But, yeah, he stood up and handled it. I thought, this kid's a winner. He didn't make the kick. It happens. But this kid's a winner.
You got somebody we ought to keep our eye on? The next young quarterback prospect? Use our call-in feature. Go to the app. Use the call-in feature. You can leave a little message, and we can play it on the air later in the show. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
From the Mercury News and the Wilner Hotline, John Wilner.
How do you think their style transitions to the Big 12, John? Well, I think it's more about how does the Big 12 adapt to Utah, to be honest. They're just so different than most teams around the country, the way they play, their physicality. So to me, it's more about Big 12 adjusting. And certainly, I've seen on social media, Big 12 fans haven't taken too kindly to Utah kind of coming in like they run the show. But I think there's a lot of parity in the Big 12. But to me, Utah is the team to beat. And I think the Utes can have a real good season and make the playoff as the Big 12 champ.
Catch Nance and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The band of the day today is Yellow Card, and it's brought to you by Live Nation. For all of the live concerts and events in 2024, check out livenation.com. You can use the call-in feature on our app. Send us your takes. High school football. The college quarterback coming out of Utah now, Maddox Madsen winning the starting quarterback job at Boise State. The opener for the Utes is 10 days away. The first full Saturday of college football is 12 days away, but Utah is a Thursday opener. While we wait for the opener, PK, you put it up on Facebook. Anything the people want us to talk about. I have to say, as soon as I saw that, I thought we're going to get a bunch of people saying hockey, Utah Hockey Club, let's go. But it was scattered. There was no one thing.
There was no general consensus of opinion?
There was not. Somebody wants NFL news. Somebody else wants PGA Tour news. Somebody else wants something else. It was all over the map.
Well, you're all things to all people. Go.
Back to college football.
Well, go with whatever they want. This is their show. We're doing it for them.
There were people who wanted the National Football League. Should we give them the NFL? Too early for a preseason Super Bowl pick? Not knowing who's going to get beat up in the NFL?
Yeah, but then by that logic, December would be
too early. It can still get gutted.
Yeah.
Still get gutted by injuries in the last couple. Now the regular season stretches into January. So.
Right, that's why I picked December. Yeah. No, I don't think it's ever too early to come up with your thoughts and your ideas and your prognostications and what you're looking forward to, particularly if you have a favorite team. You want to hear about that team, that's for sure. Whoever that team might be across the board here. Obviously, we don't have a team, so there isn't a heavy percentage, I don't think, that leans one way or the other. I think for me, it's like whichever teams, not just one or two, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whichever teams are hot in the moment, and when it's their time. And if you play it right, your time should last at least a handful of years in terms of being in contention. And right now, obviously, the Chiefs are that. We had that with the Patriots for many years. That was their time. Their time has come and gone, as it will everybody's. And then you have to reload. And going away when I first moved here, it was the Niners. That was their time. And I think the Cowboys are always so overwhelming that it's their time all the time, even when
it hasn't been their time for decades.
I compare it to when I first moved here, BYU. Utah was just in the process of taking off, but they weren't developed yet. BYU had already been developed coming from the Southwest like I did. Now, when as a kid, you heard nothing about it. But where I lived in the Northeast, it was so much the NFL just dominating, and then Notre Dame. And then Penn State, those are the ones that you heard about a lot growing up there, at least in my world. And then when I moved west, still it took me a good while to get into college football. Probably not until I probably got into college football the most when I moved to California. Already had been out of college, obviously, and there you had the two LAs, and that kind of got you going a little bit. And the guys that I work with, a lot of them went to one or the other, not all of them. But that got me going, and I got more interested there. And at that time, I think that's when BYU was out. They were on television. Didn't hear squat about Utah. You heard about BYU. So when I moved here, they were sort of the Cowboys of local. that no matter what they did, they were news. Win, great. Lose.
What the heck happened?
Even greater in terms of, it seemed like if they lost, there was more angst than there was we won because you're expected to win, and that's what you do and go to the Holiday Bowl. They went for so many years and all that stuff. So I viewed that. It certainly has changed now. I mean, I don't think BYU has changed, but Utah is risen so substantially that they're in the direct conversation. When you're talking college football, you have to talk Utah, whereas when I first got here, you didn't. Now you must. They're a requirement. And you can argue with a lot of evidence on your side that they're a better program. I understand that completely. I don't think BYU's dropped. They still are a heavy, heavy newsmaker. There's no question about that. I think that's where the Cowboys are at the NFL level. They're still a big-time newsmaker, and then across the board, not individually, not speaking from a parochial level, I'm speaking across the board generally, which teams are hot, right? You got the Niners have resurrected themselves, and they're hot right now too. And certainly, obviously, the Chiefs. And there's 3-4 others. And then you got individual stories.
Detroit and Green Bay.
I got to see more.
Granted, but I think that's what people are looking for this year. Let's watch Detroit and Green Bay.
But I don't think they're at foremost of conversation.
Another team that we want to see more, but I don't think is foremost of conversation, but could easily be, is Houston. That was great. Now do it with everybody looking at you. And now are you ready to be better in the postseason?
Well, the arrow is pointing extremely high for that team.
And then Jacksonville. It's go time.
I don't know that I see it.
Peterson's had another year there. He did well in Philly. Lawrence has been to the playoffs and won a game. So Jacksonville and Houston, let's go. That division's been And those two, Colts went 9-8 last year, but Richardson barely got to play at all, so.
I don't believe in him.
I know.
And I very well could be wrong.
Too much success depends on his legs, and I have too much respect for NFL linebackers to not put a ceiling on quarterbacks who depend on their legs.
I believe in him in the way I do at Taysom Hill. This guy's an incredible athlete. Seeing him almost single-handedly beat the Utes was just amazing.
But to ask him to run through an NFL defense for 20 games to get to a Super Bowl seems that's a big ask. If Lamar Jackson can't do it, how can anyone do it? I mean, Lamar Jackson is awesome. But you're asking him to run through now. Maybe they've changed the team a little bit, and he's got a little more experience, and they've been close, so maybe they'll pull it off. All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Cam Mellor, Executive Director of the College Football Network, joins us next. We'll talk Utes, Cougars, Aggies, and the 2024 season. Stay with us. Don't miss your chance to win big every week on The Zone. This week on Wednesday, you win a pair of tickets to see Train and REO Speedwagon at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater August 29th. Listen to The Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win. DJ PK, we're joined now by Cam Mellor, Executive Director of the College Football Network. Cam, good morning.
Good morning indeed. It's finally week 0. It's here. We have football on the horizon.
We're ready. There are so many stories. I mean, you got a legend and Saban walking away in Alabama, so can they keep it winning? We got a 12-game playoff. We got conference realignment. We've got exciting players. What is your favorite story as the college season approaches?
That football is finally back. I think every offseason seems to reach its own fever pitch. This one maybe more so than other, where everybody wants to start talking about anything and everything about what's wrong with the game. And then finally, once games hit, we can talk about what's right with the game. And so I think that's what I look forward to most about week 0, is that we get here. It's August 24th, and it's here, and we get to talk about actual real live games that matter, and we get to see the product on the field. So much unknown in the era of the transfer portal, and especially with NIL backing all of it. So it's finally good to see the actual product on the field and see what quarterbacks are going to look like and what the rosters are going to look like across the nation.
Yeah, you speak of the problems of the game, and that seemed like it was a dominant topic. You know, the transfer portal, you brought that up quickly because it's having such a heavy influence. And speaking here with locally to the coaches, you know, the wild, wild west was the phrase, and it's getting out of hand, and we've got to do something about it. Well, I don't know that something has been done about it, but yet it seems to me, and get your thought on it, that it isn't as big of an issue now in terms of problems. The conferences and the schools and everybody and the individuals, from my perspective, they've adapted to it, and away we go. So it seemed like it was a big deal and it was out of control. But do you think that it has settled down? It is a way of life, and it's not viewed as such a negative as it once was just a year or two ago.
Yeah, we've definitely come around. I think maybe not necessarily externally from the fans and the college football lifers, the people that have had season tickets or tailgated back in, you know, the 70s and 80s. But I do think that we are at a point now where that adaptation has taken place, at least at the top level. And you're seeing the programs, they're all going to start to be run more like professional organizations where you don't just have a scout that's scouting regional high school athletes anymore. They are going to be scouting all 133 other teams with a wealth of database of information of all these players, because you never know who's going to jump into the portal, who's going to get another year of eligibility. And so I think you see it. That's what's separating a lot of these programs. I'll look directly at the Big 12, where I can speak to Arizona State. They don't have or didn't have somebody in the building that was scouting players. They were trusting grad assistants to look at where maybe some players that might be good in the portal are. And then you have other programs that are actively looking at, hey, this player's in the portal. He grades out as X, Y, Z on us. Let's go after him. So I think that's where the turn has been made. We've started to adapt it more over. It's become more accepted, absolutely, and you better embrace it, or, you know, not embrace or die, but we're getting close to that point.
The preseason polls are out. Which teams are wildly overrated? Which teams are wildly underrated? I mean, the media and the coaches rarely get it exactly right. There's probably going to be teams in both those camps.
Yeah, to me, Notre Dame, I think, is overrated at this point just because we don't know how well this team is going to adjust to life with so much changeover. They've got to replace a lot of players across the board. I know we're going to bank a lot of hope on Riley Leonard being the guy who can save this team or keep this team turning. Even maybe my alma mater, Florida State, a little bit overrated until we get the answers as well. And then underrated Arizona. I know for those same reasons, a lot of turnover, but there's the Arizona turnover is in the personnel department with Brent Brennan coming over. But I think that we're underrating nationally how good that Arizona roster is, what he was able to keep in the building. And it all speaks to, obviously, Noah Fafita. So to me, nationally, Arizona might be a little bit underrated. And then Notre Dame, speaking specifically to them about being overrated.
Well, when you bring up the Wildcats, then, if they're underrated in your mind, and I don't have any problem with that as an opinion, I would have to think that you think that you believe that they can be a strong contender to represent the Big 12 in the playoff.
Yes, and it's a combination of a bunch of different things for them as well with the roster makeup, what I think that Brennan's going to be able to do with the roster itself and the scheme. And then ultimately, I think their schedule aligns. So I wrote a strength of schedule matchup this offseason, and they have the Big 12's easiest schedule by our rankings as well. And it's I think the third easiest among the Power 4 teams this year as well. So I think if they get by Utah at this point, you look at a team where, and even if they drop the game against Utah, they likely have a rematch against Utah to get to the playoff or be the Big 12's representative. So to me, yeah, I think that they have the best chance, and I think it's a team that might sneak up on everybody else nationally, or at least in the Southeast, that don't believe any other teams exist. So to me, yes, absolutely, they're a player in the Big 12, if not the player.
I think Arizona is the perfect school to be the flagship for this conversation, which is brand new in college football, but with bigger leagues and no divisions, how your conference schedule breaks. We can't say a team's in such and such a league, so they got a tough schedule because it's a really good league. Because now inside a league, the schedules are going to vary wildly. And with only 2 out of 16 or 18 teams going to a conference title, you don't want to – I mean, teams have to be good to get there. But, man, some teams don't have to be quite as good as others to get there.
Yeah, you have to be good, and yes, but there's a way that it can break out. And so I'll go down to the SEC as well, where you have the Florida Gators that might be a halfway or a little bit above average team, but the way their schedule shapes up, they might not even win 3 games this year if it all comes to fruition. But then you have the Missouri of the world where they only have to go, and I say only, they only have to go to Alabama and Texas A&M. They get their other big games at home. The same thing with what Oklahoma goes the other way and Texas is the other way around. Texas gets everybody to Austin. Oklahoma has to go visit everybody in the SEC. So, yes, you have to be good. But also there's some now without the divisions, say for our friends at the Sun Belt who are living in the past at this point with divisions, but you have to be good. But then there's also a lot of luck that comes into where your schedule aligns.
With the demise of the Pac-12, we have 3 conferences that were impacted in addition to everybody but the SEC when you have the Bay Areas moving to ACCs and the others to the Big Ten and Big 12. Do you buy that there'll be adjustment periods for these schools going in?
I do. And I think it's not just – I think maybe we've not quite put the emphasis on how much travel will affect these kids that are going from Northern California to the state of Florida on a regular basis, or Southern California to Piscataway, New Jersey. Non-revenue sports aside, I think that's a bigger issue with how well those other teams have to adjust when they go travel. But the football team specifically, it's a big-time deal. But also they get the benefit of the doubt when they do host a home game. And you have teams coming from as far as across the country to their home ground. So to me, I think the teams that are probably more equipped and more adept have been those ones that have scheduled those home-and-home series, the Oregons of the world that it might be a little bit more prone to being able to play these Big Ten teams. To me, it's a large adjustment period, though, but specifically probably to those Northern California teams, Cal and Stanford, who have to play within what I can call the All-Coast Conference now at this point in the ACC.
Nice. Way to adapt. That's good.
You got to be adaptable in this media industry.
The season could go a lot of different ways, but let's just say for the Utes that they need to win their last game to get into the Big 12 title game. Maybe they'll already be in, maybe they'll already be out. But if they have to win the 12th game to get into the Big 12 title game, how good is UCF? Because Utah's going to have to fly across the country, play them on a short week on a Friday. That presents some of its own problems. But the biggest factor is how good is that other team going to be?
So, UCF, I think they like to say that it stands for UC Fast at this point. And I think that's who they recruited and how they recruited. It's a fast team. It's a good team. I don't know if it's a team that's another year away from competing in the Big 12 with how much they've had to make over their roster since joining the Big 12. But all out of it obviously banks on what Gus Malzahn is able to do in that transfer portal. You see him bringing multiple Power 4, former Power 5 players to beef up that roster last year, and they continue that with KJ Jefferson. So we have a difference in what they want to do philosophically and schematically this year, going from John Rice Plumlee to Jefferson, but it's going to be a lot of the same concepts and a lot of the same aspects. Penny Boone, R.J. Harvey, though, that is as talented of a duo in the backfield as any team in the Big 12.
We see Ohio State, obviously, they're always right there in the preseason rankings and usually are right there during the season rankings, too. But you look at them and they're starting a quarterback who was basically beaten out at another school and he transfers there. Does that have any cause for concern?
Slightly. But ultimately I look back at it and Will Howard was able to take Kansas State to the Big 12 championship game. He had arguably the easiest situation to go into as any starting quarterback in the Power 4, though, I'd say. And so there's a slight cause for concern. Did he do enough to beat out Devin Brown? Was it really Devin Brown and not Julian Sayin or Aaron Olin that he was actually supposed to keep out of the starting lineup at this point? It's a wealth of riches, an embarrassment of riches at the quarterback position. Is he the one that leads this team and makes them any better, though? That's my biggest concern with Howard. Does he elevate the talent? Does he actually need to, though? That's ultimately where that question comes, because that is as talented of a roster in college football, except for maybe their week 4 opponent in the Oregon Ducks.
Talking about teams adjusting to new conferences, obviously for the 4 teams that went into the Big 12 a year ago, it was difficult. Is anybody poised for either a good step forward, let's be bowl eligible, or even a bigger step forward than that? And obviously BYU's in that group, and we got a lot of Cougar fans listening. But just what do you think of these second-year Big 12 programs?
The second-year Big 12, I think we're going to see a little bit of a difference of opinions nationally. But ultimately, I think it's going to come down to where the rosters are in terms of the changeover. I think if I remember correctly, the biggest thing that we wanted to know from BYU last year was the war of attrition. Were they going to be able to stay healthy enough, and were they going to be able to present enough depth on that roster to compete in the Big 12? I think we saw it slowly start to rear its ugly head, lack of depth. I don't know if they got a whole lot better in that regard this offseason, whereas I'll look at a team like the Cincinnati Bearcats. They did enough work this offseason to continue to make over that roster, to bring in players. I know they got hurt with Dante Corleone's health concerns this offseason. If they get him back in the lineup, you're looking at one of the better defensive fronts in the Big 12, and then they have depth. So I think Cincinnati is in turn for that, maybe that change, or that they're going to be a middling player, could surprise a couple of teams, whereas BYU still may be a year off.
When we get to the at-large bids this year, and we'll have that, it's going to be somewhat reminiscent of the basketball, where you have conferences that are petitioning and they're politicking and trying to campaign to get multiple teams in, whatever it may be. What do you think is going to be the storyline for the Big 12? I'm wondering along the lines of going to be the depth of the conference, why we deserve 2, possibly 3. Look at how we may not have the absolute dominant. Maybe the Utes end up going undefeated or one loss, maybe we'll see, or somebody else. But I'm wondering if you think the storyline as they get to politic when we start to get into late November and December, that our depth is what makes us great, and that's why we deserve multiple teams in.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to go to a point where you look at it on the competitive balance as well. In those games, were those top teams competitive against one another, or was it just a true runaway? I think that was a small microcosm of what we saw with Florida State's absence last year from the playoff. Obviously, Jordan Travis's injury is the reason for that. But at that point, were they competitive in the other games, or was it just a boat race? Was there any other ACC team that would have pushed for a 12-team playoff bid last year? And I don't think so. And I think that's what the Big 12 has to be concerned about. Is it just 2 teams at the top? Is it just the Utes that's dominant against, the second best team? I think that's probably the argument, because you're going to have the SEC that probably wants 4 teams in, the Big 10 that probably wants 4 teams in as well, and thinks that they can deserve that as well. And so I see it going that way, where we get at least 2 from each of the Power 4, maybe not the ACC at this point, unless things shake out for them. So a couple of at-large bids is certainly warranted. I think it's going to come down to that competitive balance of between those top 2, top 3, maybe even top 4 teams in each of the other 3 conferences.
Predicting the future is a really risky business, so let's do it. Flashing forward right now, can I just assume that when we get to this 12-team playoff, Seed 1 and Seed 2 are going to be the SEC and the Big 10 champs. Seeds 3 and 4 will be the ACC and Big 12 champs, which means they're going to have to play the SEC and Big 10 runners-up, who are going to be seeded 5 and 6. Maybe Notre Dame, you think Notre Dame could be a little overrated, so I don't know if they'll be that high if they get in. But that's pretty much, even before we kick off, we can already assume the top 6 seeds and who's going to match up with who by conference, even if we can't plug in exactly Utah, Oklahoma State, Arizona, K-State, whoever.
Yeah, it's to me, the seeding is going to matter. And so that actually, what that does is that silences the crowd that thinks that every game doesn't matter, because every game does matter still in college football. You're going to still be fighting for seeding. You're going to be wanting that 5th seed if you're not this top or this 6th seed or whatever it is at that point. So yeah, to me, to be irresponsible, I can absolutely pencil in at this point. I don't see any of the ACC teams, maybe even not a Big 12 team, going undefeated. And if they are undefeated, one-loss Ohio State team whose losses to Oregon absolutely gets the 1 seed, or a one-loss Texas team whose only losses to Alabama. Like, there's a serious claim that no matter what happens, we see the Big 12 or the Big 10 and the SEC in the 1 and 2. So every game matters, and I think that's what it boils down to. I can absolutely see a lot of cause for concern here, though, when we get down to teams 11 and 12 for those exact reasons, though.
Kyle Whittingham is talking frequently about expansion, and he thinks it's going to be significant, or realignment, whatever you want to call it there. And he's expecting that to happen not so far in the distant future, and he's been very, very vocal about it. What's your take?
Yeah, my thing is I want to see what happens with Florida State and with the ACC, and if they can get out of the media rights deal, because at that point, we're locked into 2035 with some of these conferences. Any billion-dollar TV deals they have. So until we can get out of those billion-dollar TV deals, we all know money talks. And so, yes, I do think something will come of it. Something will happen. And ultimately, if these billion-dollar TV deals have any, their say, we'll at least keep the names, but the teams will be rapidly different. So change is constant in college football. And I think as long as we all continue to adapt and be ready to go and be ready to talk about teams across the nation, the product has seen a significant upgrade since we've realigned, in my opinion, since the transfer portal. So, change is constant, get used to it, and enjoy Saturdays as we know them while you can.
Did Alabama get it right or get it wrong with their coaching hire with DeBoer?
They got it right, and I look at what Kalen DeBoer's been able to do since being hired. Kept the players he wanted on that roster. He brought the players he wanted in on that roster. And then I think the biggest thing in college football this season no one talks about is having live play-by-play action on iPads on the sidelines. So what did he do? He went and he got a couple of former head coaches as his coordinators to adjust live and in real time. That is as stacked of a coaching staff as I've ever seen. And so I think that we're going to see the benefits of that play out, not just with his roster construction, but his coaching staff adjustments that they make, not even just at halftime anymore. It's going to be mid-drive. We're going to see these guys making adjustments. So, yes, Alabama got it right, and DeBoer's done nothing but impress since then.
Cam, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks for joining us and looking ahead to the college football season.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Cam Mellor right there, Executive Director of the College Football Network. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. More football coming up. 10 days to the Utes opener, 12 days now until the first full Saturday. Although we got Florida State playing in week 0, so we got that to look forward to. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We just had on Cam Mellor from the College Football Network, a wide-ranging discussion of college football. And PK, there was one thing that caught your mind, or caught your ear, as I tried to do two things at once and fail.
Well, at least you failed safely, though. That could be very dangerous.
DJ and PK brought to you in part by Lumen Technologies. Your life moves fast. Quantum Fiber Internet is faster. Move up to tomorrow's speed today. Go to quantumfiber.com. That's quantumfiber.com.
The opportunity of the Big 12, what's it going to be its rep? It remains to be seen because it's brand new, right? It's brand new last year. It's brand newer this year.
Mm-hmm.
And as it tries to...
I like that, by the way. That was good.
Negotiate the landscape of where it fits in. There's only 4 of you, so are you third? That's the big goal for the ACC and the Big 12. But what do you mean by third? How you can be third, but if there's a tremendous gap between 1, 2, and 3, what's the difference if you're third, right? You got to be third, but be knocking on the door of moving up and be in the realm. There can't be this massive gap.
Should we be more negative than that? You're going to be the Big 12 champ, whoever you turns out to be, right? Utah's a preseason pick, but if it's somebody else, whoever the Big 12 champ is, can they beat the runner-up from the SEC or the Big 10? Because I think that's who they're going to meet in the quarterfinals. They get a bye through the round of 12. They'll play in the quarters. If they get knocked out right then, it'll be like, see, there's really only 2 leagues.
Sure, but part of the deal is getting multiples in there to double your odds.
Yep.
And
give you another chance to win.
Yeah. And so will they have a dominant team? And will that dominant team be able to get its credit for being a dominant team?
There we go. The answer
that's the issue.
That's the easier question to answer. No, they won't get credit. Are they going to have the sparkling record? That is hard to know sitting here right now, and that's why we watch the games, because we don't really know.
I believe it can be achieved.
The schedule is set up so it can be achieved. There's enough of the big top teams that don't play each other. Kansas and Arizona caught pretty good schedules.
So that's where I'm going. I think Utah did too. That's where I'm going with this, is that they very well could have a team with a record that dictates dominance. But will they receive credit? Cam Mellor just brought up Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, if you get a cake schedule, though,
if you're
are you
11-1,
going to receive the credit?
If you're 11-1 and the loss is to Utah, then Paul Feinbaum's going to go on TV and say they didn't beat anybody. He's gonna
drop a stink bomb.
There you go. Feinbaum, stink bomb. Nice.
Yeah, he did it a couple years back. You see Utah really got under my skin when he said that. I wanted to rip his hair out.
Just a little.
Yeah, he didn't have much hair.
He's just got a quarter inch of hair over his ear.
I often wondered, what would I do if I was in that situation where I just had it on the sides and I got nothing on top? Do I go all the way? Do I just admit, hey, it didn't work out for me and do it? No. I'm not
so
in
you
that
go to the
position.
shaved head, or do you stay where Paul is? Or you got option 3, get a rug. Or hair implants.
I don't really see that much anymore.
I didn't know this was a thing. I just saw a headline that people are flying to Turkey for hair implants. Super cheap. Like, well, yeah, but you got to fly to Turkey. Doesn't that offset the cost?
Well, I mean, you got an opportunity to visit Istanbul, maybe.
Yes,
I mean, you gotta
go to the Grand Bazaar. Come on,
you
now.
gotta combine it. You just don't
Hagia
run over there
Sophia.
to get a do and come back. Make a trip out of it. So when you come back, you're a new man. But you look at, I just went to College Football News, right, and wrote down the degree of difficulties and strength of schedules. So the U of A is coming in at 59. That's not good.
Right.
So you wonder if they, and I guess, with their offense and all, and they're capable of doing it, probably, certainly within the conversation of doing it. To what degree are they easier or a little more likely than the other Arizona or Utah, Oklahoma State, whatever? That's up for debate. But they belong in that conversation. There's no question about it. But if they do that, will they get credit? And I just did a quick look. The best or the toughest strength of schedule. No, excuse me, let's back up. The easiest strength of schedule is Kansas State at 26. You got in the bottom, in the toughest, the top 10, you got 3. You got Colorado, Houston, and ASU. 3 teams are expected to be at the bottom. That's probably contributing a little bit to their strength of schedule issues, is they're not expected to be any good. All right.
And they drew the top 4 or 5 teams in the league.
Yeah, I just don't know that that's the way to go. So you got Kansas State at 26, Oklahoma State at 28, and then there's a gap there. Utah is 37, and then there's another gap to the rest of them. So then you start with Kansas at 49, Iowa State 51, UCF 56, U of A I already said 59, and Texas Tech at 60. So you only got one school in the 30s, and that's Utah at 37. And Utah gets a lot of run, deservedly so. We've been over it a million times. But you just wonder if that's going to come back. It will bite the individual school if they don't get in. The winner gets in, so you got that automatic thing. You don't have to worry about that. But I'm wondering, as a conference as a whole, if we get into November, and we're not playing big games because these teams aren't good enough. So you go a little top-heavy, but it's viewed as a little weak top-heavy. And then I know what people will say, well, wait a second, man. You got Alabama playing the Citadel, and they're having tune-ups before they play Auburn, and Auburn isn't that good. But I get that, but it's all about rep. And the SEC's got rep in spades. They don't have to apologize. They know Paul isn't dropping a stink bomb saying nobody wants to see Alabama. Well, the fact is everybody wants to see Alabama, according to his line of thinking and his view. We may think differently over here, but we're in the minority, buried out here in the West, 8 hours away from anybody. And so it doesn't really matter what we think. It's what the other folks, where there's tons of people in there, and what's that perception? And I'm just wondering if this perception of these teams not playing each other and not having big games, particularly in November, will it come back to bite you? You could obviously argue that Utah's biggest games are right off the bat.
Oklahoma State and Arizona are the first 2 conference games.
So you're getting them in September. Now, if you win, the team if the Utes go 2-0,
then
they can kind of put their feet up. And I've made the statement, if they go 2-0, assuming that they win the other 3, so they'd be 5-0, they'd be top 10, deservedly so, that they got a shot to run the table. But running the table, that's great for fun and all, but what does it get you? As opposed to if you had a couple of losses and still won the conference. You don't get anything more. It wouldn't be the excitement of, we're going to the BCS, we're the BCS Busters. You're going to be in, you're going to have to, if you go 12-0, you got to go 13-0.
Otherwise, you end up with a 7 seed or an 8 seed.
Yeah, to get something. To get more, to get the most out of it. I just wonder if this conference will get its bang for its buck by having the top teams not face each other. I guess it would be kind of cool then to have K-State versus Utah, whoever it might be, two teams that didn't play each other in the regular season. That would be fresh. But you're not going to argue if you have a rematch with Arizona. As long as you're in, you really care who's the other side? Probably not. You got to win that ball game either way, or Oklahoma State for that matter. And I guess you can argue a neutral field, but then, oh, wait, it's in Dallas. That's just 5 hours away. We got 16 hours away. Come on, get out of town. That's not neutral and all that stuff. So you go back and forth on that. I don't know that this conference will get its credit. I'm wondering if it would have been better to stage some bigger games when college football really, really becomes the talk of the town. And I don't know that the Big 12 will have that at that time.
So does a 10-2 team that misses the conference title game get in? Or do you have to be an 11-win team to get in out of the Big 12? 11-2, you're the conference champ, you're in.
So you're 10-2 and you're not in the conference final?
Which I can see happening. I can see somebody being 7-2 in the league, losing a tiebreaker, and not being in the conference title game.
Well, does that team then get in over the runner-up? Or are we assuming that the two teams that go?
That's interesting. What if
I don't know if they're going to get three.
If
that
the runner-up is
stretch.
Yeah, well, how will they handle a runner-up who is 10-3? Now, if the runner-up goes in, if they can get two 11-1 teams into the title game, then maybe they're both in. I'm with you. 3 is a stretch. That would be a weird year to get 3 in. Is it possible? Sure. Is it likely? No. There's not even a 50-50. I mean, it's a 10% chance, 15% chance to get 3 teams in. That'd be an odd year. If that happens once in the next 5 or 6 years, I would think that's the most you could hope for.
Yeah, if the conference is around in 5 or 6 years, but I get your
right.
point.
I'm just going off TV contracts to the end of the decade. And if you can get out of them and break it up like Florida State's trying to do, good luck. One thing that we didn't have a chance to talk to Cam about, but I did read a thing that ESPN, and this makes sense, that ESPN will not do the automatic opt-in 2027 with the ACC. That at minimum, they'll be clawing money back, and maybe if Florida State and Clemson are out, they'll just walk away.
Clawing
money back.
Huh.
So that could start to trigger a whole round of speculation. Now, how long, it took Oklahoma and Texas a few years after they announced to finally get out. So it's an end of the decade kind of thing, I think, one way or another.
I think if there's a few big non-conference games, the Big 12 really needs to win those.
Well, there aren't many.
Like right off the bat.
I mean, does Oklahoma State, Arkansas count as they got to win it. I don't know that that's a big game, but you certainly can lose it.
Penn State at West Virginia.
That'd be good.
August 31st, 10 a.m. Big Fox. Isn't that what they call it?
Yep. To separate it from FS1.
Yeah. So
does Colorado, Nebraska count?
No.
Okay.
Colorado counts because it's Dion.
Yep.
But I don't see them. I don't see where they'll be in contention. And that's nothing against Dion. It's putting more realistic expectations on Dion. Allow the man time to build as you would anybody else. And they were putrid when they got Dion, right? So he needs time. If they win 5-6 ball games, that's a significant improvement in my mind. I mean, he didn't walk on water. He's a football coach. He's a celebrity. I get that. But when you show up at practice, it's not about he's a celebrity. He's a football coach with a football team trying to get better. I don't think they're going to be that good.
Kansas State and Utah, they're big non-conference games or conference games that don't count. So that's not going to give you a boost. You wouldn't think.
Well, I think Kansas State beating Arizona can that. Depending on how things shake out, I think that's a big game. I realize it's not towards conference standings, but you're likely to have ranked teams. And if you get 2 ranked teams going against each other in September, that's big because we don't have a lot of that.
Kansas' big game is Illinois. So as I look at contenders here, is just a little thin on big wins. I mean, Kansas is better win it, obviously.
Well, everybody is.
Yeah.
I mean, Penn State, I called up their schedule. The next 2 games after that, they open with West Virginia, at West Virginia, and then it's Bowling Green and Kent State.
W and a W.
They really got to get a handle on this stuff.
Do they?
Yes, yes. The TV will demand it.
I hope so.
Well, I know so.
Hasn't demanded it out of the SEC yet.
But the world has changed.
If nothing else, maybe they move conference games around. So we see more conference games week 2 and 3. Because you're right, they need better product to televise.
Yeah. Yeah, we get so excited about it. About midway through the second quarter, I'll be bored with SUU and Utah.
Yeah. It'll be a game. It'll be great. But it gets to 21-0, and then you're moving on.
Yeah, and then we're going to see Wilson get in there, and we're going to try to make 3-year judgments based on what he does against SUU.
Wilson and Caleb Lohner, right? Let's watch those guys. What have they got?
Well, Lohner's only got a one and done, right? So
yeah, he's got the one season.
He's a senior.
So whatever he does, there's no future in it for the program, maybe for himself. But this year, if Caleb Lohner never takes a snap, they'll be great at tight end.
Yeah, they got a lot of talent there.
Yeah. So it doesn't even really matter from the team perspective. He's the true icing.
He's an intriguing story, but he's icing on the cake.
Yeah.
TCU's at Stanford and at SMU. Can TCU get a little run?
Mm-hmm. I mean, relatively speaking, that's as good as anybody's.
And TCU has a difficult draw in the conference. They play a lot of the teams that are ranked here in the preseason. K-State's the only one of the 5 they miss. So TCU's got a schedule where they could build a little something if they're good enough to win.
Although I didn't even see them at their schedule in the top 60. Maybe I overlooked it. I only went to 60. Maybe, but I could have gone past it. Maybe I wasn't thinking TCU. Maybe I was thinking TCU's in the WAC, aren't they?
What?
I don't know. I got to go back and see.
What is going on here?
TCU was in the 16-team WAC.
They were.
Not relevant now, Your Honor. Not relevant.
I wonder if I missed TCU.
Yeah, they were in there for the 2 seasons that it existed, essentially.
Oh, okay. TCU. Yeah, I did miss TCU. They are at 20. So you're right. Their strength of schedule is 20. I missed them. I went right past TCU.
Hard to believe they're going to flourish with road games at Stanford, at SMU, at Kansas, at Utah. That's a tough road stretch. They have Oklahoma State and Arizona at home. That's a solid schedule.
I know why I didn't put TCU on the list is because I didn't consider them a contender.
Yeah,
and I was just listing
the contenders.
That's the point.
They're more a middle of the league team. They didn't get any preseason rankings. They didn't get any first place votes in the poll.
Yeah, because BYU's sitting there as 15th hardest schedule. It just seems maybe it'll play out in the way the conference wants it. Who am I to question Brett Yormark? No one questions Brett Yormark.
You do.
No, I don't.
Don't question the visionary.
No, I cannot. But to see that these teams, there's not enough games to be able to have. They knew full well who was going to be good, and it was an opportunity. It was a brand new schedule. You could have.
But it looks like they're trying to build glossy win-loss totals and not worry so much about the strength of schedule.
And I wonder how that's going to play out in the eyes of the voters. So it's still a dog and pony show to a degree. You can take care of it by getting the automatic bid. But to me, once you bring in judges, that leaves it open for debate.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
6 SEC teams against 6 Big Ten teams, which I know is not possible. I'm just saying, if that were... Right. If that were the case, that actually would probably be the most intriguing from a TV interest standpoint. And I think that the G5 invite becomes like, isn't that cute? Well, we've always liked these storylines. Utah 2004 and 2008. Boise State being the BCS Busters. That's so fun for you guys. Just don't be a part of our national championship. Get the hell out of here.
Just don't win that game.
Just don't show up
don't
for
win
that.
That 5-12 game.
Yeah, if you win your first round game, then you know what you have to do. You have to lose in that second round at the very least.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. And now, your Rocky Mountain Chevy dealer strong play of the weekend.
McKinstry at second base. The pitch, swinging a line drive. Base hit into left. McKinstry's being waved around third. Dominguez has a big arm. A hesitation. The throw home. Not in time. Tigers win. Zach McKinstry delivers the tying run with a single. Scores the winning run on a Parker Meadows base hit into left. The Tigers walk it off in the Little League Classic in Williamsport. What a night.
Detroit 3-2 over the Yankees. That's the Chevy play of the game. The walk-off winner. Know it this afternoon. JJ and Alex call for it after 3 o'clock today, and you can win fabulous prizes. PK, we get a lot of these, and one of them just caught your attention. Emails, people are offering up stories and odds. And with college football now, well, week 0 is coming up Saturday. The Utes in 10 days, the full schedule in 12 days. What do you have?
They have a list. The first college coach likely to be fired.
Utah State. Blake Anderson.
No, it's during the season.
Doesn't count. He's already gone. All right, fine. Let's see. Possibilities.
But he wasn't fired due toward lack of performance, was he?
No. How about Billy Napier, Florida? Hasn't had a winning season in 2 years. It's year 3. It's SEC.
He's the overwhelming favorite.
There it is.
At 4-1. I guess not overwhelming, statistically. A couple surprises on here, though.
Lincoln Riley at USC.
25-1.
Okay.
I don't see it. They got him and Dabo Swinney at 25-1.
Wow, Dabo, you would think have a lot of credibility at Clemson. That'd be surprising.
Oh, yeah, a lot of credibility at Clemson there. No question about it.
Let's see. How about who is the big, just limited to Big 12 coaches? I know that's a list of all of them, but scan down there. It's got to be somebody who didn't make the play or didn't make a bowl eligibility last year, which means somewhere in there has got to be Kalani Sitake.
Correct. There's 2 guys.
Cincinnati?
No.
UCF?
No, hold on.
Okay.
2 guys that you would look at that are on the hot seat in the Big 12. The hottest seats, to me, it's obvious.
I'm blanking on
I know you are, but when I say it, you will know it.
Okay.
Aranda.
Of course. What an idiot. I should have totally gotten that.
Right. And
Good grief.
You're just missing it.
And Kalani, right? Yeah. So what are their odds?
Aranda's 7, Kalani's 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else in the 4-1, 10-1 range there that we recognize?
Pittman over at Arkansas, and then this other one, I just don't see it. It's way too early, in my mind, is Cristobal at Miami.
Interesting. Does seem a little early. I guess those are aggressive odds, but it comes down to they got boosters and they've churned through coaches, which would be a reason not to. I get it, but...
Yeah, but you brought him home, and what are we looking at? 1-11? You know, what would it take? As far as I look at, I think you put all this emphasis into hiring a coach, whoever it is, but it seems like whatever work you put in to hire one, seems like it's quicker a lot of times to fire one. And I don't think it should be. It should be equal. Now, there are some times that it is so obvious and a move must be made. When BYU made the move in 2004?
2004.
Duh. Right?
And there was an argument.
1,000%
there was an argument that it could have been made in 2003, and you know people who wanted to move it in 2003 who thought nothing good can come of 2004, and it didn't. They were right. But that's
Correct.
The thing is that a lot of times there's a chance it could go right.
Okay, but then
with Cristobal, there's a chance it goes to go right, so give it a chance to happen.
Well, that's why you hired him.
Is this year 3 for him now?
Should be, yeah, because Lanning
He's had 2.
That was the replacement. I just think that it would after 2 years.
Oh, of course it's 3 because of the title game with Utah.
Yeah,
of course it's 3.
Yeah. So let them go a little bit. Did they not? I mean, I'm not following Miami that closely, but did they not make?
I wonder how much credibility he lost mangling that clock at the end of a game.
Okay. I mean, Andy Reid hasn't been the best clock manager.
There have been some stories.
So I just think that you need to let it ride out a little bit. But in this world of high risk, high reward, I get where they're coming from. Like Ryan Day is on the list. If you go 12-1 one more time.
So help me. I think his career record is like 58-9, isn't it? Or is it 58-6, something like that? It's outrageously good.
Yeah. Satterfield from Cincinnati is on the list, but you were talking about 10 and under, 10-1 and under.
Right.
He's listed as 14-1, and he's always going to live up. Whoever from now for the next 20 years, or they're always going to try to live up to the one season where they got in the playoff. Right. It's like a mini UNLV. 50 years from now, we're still trying to resurrect Tarkanian.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Times have changed.
Yeah. And I think the Devils have it with Frank Kush. You know?
I actually get Cristobal looking at it. He's 12-13. Like running him, if he'd won, I don't know.
But see, I have to look. You just look at records. You look at numbers, and that's the be-all, end-all.
And if he has a third year and he's under 500 after 3 years, I do think the number is. And to your point, if he'd won after 3 years, if he was, 24-12 or something, you're not back to the glory days, but you're in a half-decent spot. Give him a chance to build on it.
What spot was he in when he took over the program?
Crappy. That's why he took it over. It'd have been great. They wouldn't have run the last guy.
Yeah. So you have to look at it and see.
Manny Diaz was in a better place at 21-15. This is one of the schools where every time they change, the record gets worse. Mark Richt got shoved out. He was retired. He was 26-13. So the win percentage, 67%, 58%, 48%. They're getting further away from the goal, not closer.
I mean, isn't that what Nebraska's done?
Yes, it's exactly what Nebraska's done.
Who was the guy who was
Solich.
kind of hothead?
Oh, no. Solich was a guy who came in, had the pedigree, won a conference title, aaveraged a little better than 9 wins.
The other guy
got
was
fired.
And he was a hothead.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Bo Pelini.
Yeah,
Bo Pelini.
Wasn't he decent?
Yes. Yeah, he won at a pretty high clip, but he just literally made every enemy he could possibly have made, and the second they had a chance to fire him, they did.
And they've slipped.
Yeah.
And now who's the ex-Baylor guy who was in
Matt
the
Rule.
NFL? Yeah, and see what he can do.
He's got Dylan Raiola as his quarterback.
And okay, that what does that mean, man? It's almost to the point where if these quarterbacks match the star ranking, that's the news, not the other way around.
Correct.
And in a league,
seeing it constantly now.
In a league where Nebraska's got to catch Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State, and now they got to catch USC, Oregon, and Washington. How?
They should do a study on these high school kids that have the big star ranking and start being they're catered to, they're special, and they don't make it. I wonder what the mental health situation is among those types of players. That's a very serious thing. I've seen it here locally. Multiple cases of kids.
The pressure's been crushing on a young man.
And they don't make it.
Right.
Yes. And they have upheaval in their personal lives because from the 10th grade on and their families.
If not earlier, but certainly from the 10th grade on.
Thinking that they're going to play in the NFL. And then they get to college and it doesn't work. And I bet you that there's a high percentage of them, at least to some degree, and it's no laughing, joking matter by any stretch. But I'm just wondering, putting these rankings on these 15-year-olds, is that the way to go?
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Coming up, Morgan Scalley, Utah defensive coordinator. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. The Utah assistant coaches talk at the start of summer camp and at the end. And now they're into game week preparation. 10 days out, but, they start early.
So the install's over?
The install, PK, is complete. In these press conferences, there is always a question about the install, which is short for installation. The install question will come about 3/4 of the way through the interview. Oh, no, that was with Andy. It comes about halfway, much earlier here in the defensive coordinator interview.
I don't know. I wasn't there. You were.
Yep. Here is Utah defensive coordinator Morgan Scalley answering questions from various media members as they approach game week preparation.
Morgan, you sent 2 safeties to the NFL, so that is an obvious priority to rebuild that position. How's it going?
Very well, very well. Guys that have had some experience, Teo at the nickel spot has progressed quite well. The physical aspect of it, him coming down in the box, that's something he's had to get used to, but he's put on the weight, looking really good. Nate Ritchie's a guy that's already started for us. John O'Hall had meaningful time last year for us. Rabbit Evans has made a ton of progress. And so feel really good with Alakai Gilman. That's a high IQ football player. We've got 5 guys vying for 2 spots, and I feel really good about where we're at. Not comfortable enough to say we've named 2 starters yet, but excited about those 5.
Are you okay rotating as many as 5 of them if you need to?
Preferably not. You'd like to get 2 to get into a rhythm, but we have had 3 safety groups in the past. That's where kind of Sione Vaki got his first playing time was his freshman year as that 3rd safety. So, putting the right 11 on the field is the first priority, and if that right 11 is 3 safeties, then that'll be it.
What have you seen from Kenan Johnson? Obviously transferred in, but he seems like he's already making a big impact on the defense. I mean, walking through what he's done this fall.
Yeah, the biggest thing with Kenan is he brings that experience and the accumulated reps at the corner position, great quickness, the ability to, the recovery speed's all, huge in our defense. We've got to keep him healthy. The ankle's been an issue for him here and there, but for the most part, he's looking, like he can be that guy opposite Zamaya.
How does a Florida high school kid who played at Georgia Tech end up at Utah for his final year? How did the recruiting there work?
Well, you'd have to ask Sharif on how that went. In terms of my meeting with him, he wanted a program that was going to be able to continue to develop him, but also an opportunity to play right away. We don't give out promises, so he knew that coming in that he was going to have to compete for that spot, and he's still working to compete for that spot. So love what he brings to the table, but I think our culture here, what we do defensively, as much man coverage as we play, a lot of that played into it, and then obviously his relationship with Coach Shaw.
You guys have a lot of depth in the linebacker room, maybe even the most in the conference. How are you guys sort of approaching that with so many different levels of playmakers? I mean, is there going to be solidified starters for each game, or is it going to be more of a rotational emphasis with, depending on who you're facing?
The best 2 will play in nickel, the best 3 will play in 4-3. And right now, Lander and Karene have the 2 spots solidified. Sione Fotu is in 4-3, been a very good player for us. So everyone knows that when you're part of a good football team, there's not everyone's going to start. So Colton Swanson did a nice job with that room, developing those guys, helping them understand that only 2 to 3 can play at one time.
In the Pac-12, you face some elite skill players, but Utah won a lot of games with being the more physical team and the tougher team and pulling games out. Now you go to the Big 12 where it's a little different, and especially this year it looks like there's multiple good running backs behind good offensive lines. Is it going to be a different test for the defense, a different style of ball as far as the toughness and physicality you'll face?
Don't know. I mean, our priority has always been to stop the run first, and if we can do that, then you force teams to throw a little bit more on you. There are some very good running backs in this league, some very good offensive lines, but we feel like we stack up well in that category, the physical component of what we do defensively. So there are different offenses that we face. Again, scouting these guys, each team that we play, they bring something different each week. And so just like the Pac-12, you've got to be able to be multiple in what you do, which you've seen us play 4-3, play nickel, play some dime, play some 3 safety packages, and we've got good enough players to be able to do it.
What have you seen from a guy like Isaac Wilson? Obviously, you're on the defensive side, but he's a freshman that's obviously made a big impact already on the defensive end. How hard has he been to defend, and what have you seen from him early on?
Well, what you see is what usually happens: early mistakes, but not a lack of confidence. His coaches trust and believe in him and work through those issues, and that was no different than Alex Smith when I played. He threw some early interceptions, and he learned from that. But good judgment comes from experience, and a lot of experience comes from bad judgment. So he had a really good scrimmage this last scrimmage, I can tell you that, playing with a lot of confidence, and he's improving quite a bit.
Yeah. Andy mentioned that they are essentially wrapping up the install, looking at some Southern Utah stuff in the next couple of days. Where along the process are you guys in that?
So we've been, a lot of the scout work that we do has been our first 3 opponents. There is, at least within our first 2 opponents, there's quite a bit of similarity in scheme. Utah State brings a little bit more of the spread component, but now, we're honing in on Southern Utah.
We asked you at the outset of training camp about your confidence in your defensive line. Has your opinion changed at all in the weeks since?
Has not changed. Very good at the D-tackle spot. Love the leadership that's coming from that room, and Keanu Tanavasa and Junior Tafuna. We've got vets in that room, so we should feel pretty good about it. I love the defensive end room. The opportunity there to be able to rush for and not necessarily have to bring pressure. We bring pressure depending on what we see from an offense, but it's nice to know that we can get home with 4.
Is there any new guys in that side defensive end that you feel like is kind of helping you guys right now?
Oh, man. You don't want to leave anyone out. But, again, Van being healthy, Connor being healthy, Logan is almost 100%. Kipakana brings something, perhaps a third down package for you. Paul Fitzgerald, it looks really good. Cash Dillon is a freshman. My goodness, he's going to be special. And then you got John Henry Daly, and you got good night. I'm going to forget someone, and someone's going to have their feelings hurt. But it's a good room. It's a good room.
That linebacker room. Karenni, Leonard, we know who they are. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you've seen development in the 2s and 3s behind them?
No question. Yeah, Sione Fotu and Trey Reynolds that you have there, and some younger guys. Obviously, Hunter Andrews left, but you got Kenai Lopes and Josh Calvert is as smart as they come. He can play all 3 positions, so definitely feel comfortable with that group.
Teo Johnson's a guy kind of almost had a similar path that you did, played on the offensive end of the ball, switches to become a defensive back. How is he learning that development curve of being a safety, and what have you been able to help him with throughout this transition?
Well, the development is, first of all, knowing your alignment assignment technique as a safety. Then it becomes understanding where you fit in the grand scheme of things, and ultimately how an offense is trying to manipulate you. There's a lot to learn there outside of just, he was a quarterback versus I was more of a running back. Right. So just the physicality of things, and he's put on weight, and we've thrown him down in the box on purpose. We want to, make sure that he's getting the hitting and the taking on blocks and all that stuff, and he's done well.
Where's your leadership coming from this fall?
Right now, again, I would say the D tackles, Keanu Tanavasa, Junior Tafuna, but Karenni Reed's as good of a leader as we've had. Love what he brings to the table. Nate Ritchie at the safety position, DN's Connor O'Toole, and Van. So, really good group of guys. Good leaders in each room was what you're looking for, and we've got it.
A lot of players have talked about the culture, the defensive culture here standing out as a reason why they came here or why they enjoy it here. What makes the defensive culture here so special?
Man, you got a few hours?
Yeah.
No, it's something that we harp on every day. Culture is what you believe, how you behave, and it's the experience that's delivered by that behavior. The experience that they get is awesome, and I think that's why they keep coming back. They're held accountable, but they also know we love them. And yeah, I mean, so much goes into that in terms of not only teaching them how to become a better football player, but a better person, and anyway. We'll leave it at that. It's a long one.
Logan Fano is obviously coming back from his third ACL tear, and he came back pretty quickly from this one. What, I guess, surprised you about his recovery in this room and so forth?
It's an individual deal. I had no idea when he'd be available, but he's available, and he's worked his butt off. And usually guys that want to be back, get back sooner, as opposed to milking it or he is a guy that we've been careful with how we've used him in the process of coming back, but he doesn't look like he's missing anything.
There's Morgan Scalley, Utah defensive coordinator. And Fano can't keep a good man down. Multiple injuries. Keeps coming back. Sounds like he's ready to make an impact again this year.
I would expect so. I mean, he got on the field as a freshman last year. I mean, he was a red shirt and was making an impact until he got injured, obviously. So, yeah, I would think so.
Got any concerns for the defense? Or you figure they just figure it out? They usually figure it out.
Well, the problem here for me is they're going against offenses that I've never seen them go against. Whereas the last decade, I saw them go against
those offenses. You knew exactly what they had to match up with.
Yeah.
And you knew how good the secondary had to be to handle all those NFL receivers at USC. But how good are the receivers at these other schools? Yeah, I don't know.
Right. And I knew guys that were on the come. And they were going to have breakout seasons. They were getting better. They got a little bit of taste early on. And then their time was coming. And so here, against these new offenses that they're facing, now it's not like they're at a disadvantage. I'm not saying that. It's just, it's more of an unknown for me. It's more of a mystery, which, I've come around. And my level of excitement is pretty strong for the Big 12 conference games compared to the Pac-12. I mean, Pac-12 was off the charts, man. I mean, I just love the Pac-12. It was my conference. And I've accepted that mismanagement killed it, and those people need to be eliminated from the planet. I mean, they can go to outer space.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just want them off my planet.
Go colonize Mars.
Yeah, not get off my lawn, get off my planet. But I have a level of excitement for these new teams that Utah is going to be playing for the first time. Now, 3 of them are not going to be for the first time. Right? So that's sort of cool,
You got a handle on...
Colorado and Arizona and ASU, BYU.
So 4.
Yeah. And so I was thinking conference. Oh, I guess BYU's in the conference now. Yeah, duh.
But you follow the program enough. You got an idea. As opposed to Oklahoma State and UCF. I don't know what UCF has done in the transfer portal to bolster their program.
Well, I can read about it. But just how it plays... And when we get to that point, and obviously UCF is the last game of the season, so we'll have a ton of information. But I'm extremely jacked for Utah at Oklahoma State. I'm extremely jacked for Arizona at Utah.
Right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
Well, I got to wait 3 weeks. And then it's not like it's a torture to wait to 3 weeks. There'll be enough games. Stuff will be going on. That will occupy my time. The weather will be great here in September. And September is always, to me, the fastest month of the year in terms of flying by because we've, by and large, got rid of the summer heat. And it's just a great time of year here, the colors and all that stuff. So I enjoy that month extremely, and I'll be occupied with other stuff. But once we get to kickoff in Stillwater on that 4th week of the season, yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. But I think that to answer your question in a long-winded way, that I'm expecting Utah defense to be representative. I don't think that there'll be a massive drop-off. You lose 2 safeties to the NFL, that's a drop-off. But, they've they talked about last year sliding Johnson over, so this has been in the works for over a year.
And Nate Ritchie started before he went on a mission, before the two future NFL guys came in and seized the job while he was gone.
Right.
So they feel like they're in a good spot there.
And then last year he had some injury.
Talking to Sharif Shah about the corners, you never know because Sharif likes to play taskmaster, tough guy. So, guys, I always figure that whatever he tells me, at the minimum that's true, and it might be better than that. He doesn't go the other way where he's going to overpromise and underdeliver. How many guys do you trust? 2, 2.5, maybe 3, not quite 3, 2.5. But they could be pretty good at corner pretty quickly, and it wouldn't be that far away from what he said, but he's not going to go over the top praising guys.
Well, you get some new players there, and even if they've been on the team, like a Snowden, new in terms of more playing time.
More responsibility.
Yeah, so there is newness there. But the strength of the defense until those guys can get ready is up front. And if I got guys getting in the quarterback's face, then I could play defensive back there. You got a half a second.
How long do you have to cover for, right?
Right. So they've got ways there. They've got a lot of talent. I think that interior-wise, obviously Tafuna, and I think Tunavasa, in my mind, is going to have a breakout season to where he's going to become the next big name inside. And then they've got 3-4 guys. You already mentioned Fano, but they've got other guys on the outside there that can do their thing. And I'm excited to see what Barton can do healthy. And Barton, he could be a first-round draft choice. Wouldn't shock me. I think he's better than his brother, and Cody went in the 3rd round, didn't he?
Yeah.
Right. Now he had the injury last year himself, and he's got to get back out there, but I think he'll be fine. So the point being that the secondary can take a little time to develop, and they basically got a month. I don't want to have complete and total disrespect to say that they got 3 practice games, but they've got 3 easier games that should give them opportunities to develop.
Heavily favored in all 3 of those games.
The schedule really sets up big time favorably for them. I mean, big time favorably. There's just no doubt about it, man. It's all within the realm of them to be really good. It's going to be surprised if it's the other way. And I suppose that could happen to a degree. I mean, I don't think it'll happen more than maximum losses I can go in the regular season is 3.
3 would be a disappointment. And 3 will knock you out of the conference title game. And everybody wants to go to the playoff and win the conference, so obviously 3 is a disappointment. 2 could happen. Split Oklahoma State and Arizona, then you have a mulligan somewhere along the way. And, Friday conference road game, UCF, we'll see how good they are.
Or can't get sick or hurt for
Iowa
a game.
State, yeah.
That happens.
Yep.
The chances of any quarterback starting all 12 games are...
You'd probably bet against it.
Yeah.
Somebody will, but most won't.
Right. And
actually, Bohannon, when he won the Big 12 title, didn't play in the Big 12 title game and missed another game or 2 in November. It happens.
Yeah, right. And that's the reality of the situation there. So maybe you stumble, but then you can live with that.
Andy Ludwig was talking to me and says, we'll try not to get him hit, but it's a contact sport. And he paused. He goes, it's a collision sport. It's past contact.
Well, and you can plant and blow something out.
We see that all the time.
Yeah.
Untouched and guys go down.
Right.
Guys who haven't had a problem before.
Right. Or something pops, a hammy, whatever it is. And so you're required to sit out a game or 2. So untold things are out there. But the objective here is to play in the conference final and win that. And if you do that, all is well. Unless you got 5 injuries in that very game. But, I mean, you can spin yourself into a 6-foot hole here, projecting all the things that could potentially go wrong.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. When we come back, everything you missed in this show, we'll get you up to speed next. Stay with us.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
From the Mercury News and the Wilner Hotline, John Wilner.
How do you think their style transitions to the Big 12, John?
Well, I think it's more about how does the Big 12 adapt to Utah, to be honest. They're just so different than most teams around the country, the way they play, their physicality. So to me, it's more about Big 12 adjusting. And certainly, I've seen on social media, Big 12 fans haven't taken too kindly to Utah kind of coming in like they run the show. But I think there's a lot of parity in the Big 12. But to me, Utah is the team to beat. And I think the Utes can have a real good season and make the playoff as the Big 12 champ.
Catch Hanson Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's time for the 9 a.m. Slacker Radio headlines brought to you by Tim Dahle Mazda Southtown. Find your new Mazda at the south end of the valley at Tim Dahle Mazda Southtown. That's Tim Dahle Mazda Southtown in Sandy. Getting into any of the preseason football with the local guys playing? Curious about how they're translating to the National Football League?
Well, I'm just interested in who makes the rosters, and then we go from there.
Tim Patrick, former Ute, coming off 2 injury-plagued seasons, ACL and an Achilles, no football for 2 years, 4 catches, 30 yards, and a touchdown for Denver.
Well, if he's healthy, he'll make the roster. I want to see if Devon Bailey would make it. Now, he came on our show last year, so I'm a fan of that young man, and I want to see him make it. Just make the roster, and then go from there. 7th-round pick, nothing is guaranteed by any stretch, but indications are he's doing well.
Jonah Ellis is doing well.
That's no surprise.
Nope. Former Ute had 3 tackles, a sack, forced a fumble, and recovered it. Making it happen. Zach Wilson, will he be kept in Denver? Will they go with 2 quarterbacks and let him go? He was 2 of 6 for 29 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. Sacked a couple of times.
I do think if he doesn't make it, somebody else will pick him up.
He'll be somewhere.
Yeah.
Think he'll be on a roster or on a practice squad?
Depending on what the
team
needs
yeah.
and how many quarterbacks they want to dress and all that stuff. But I think that he's okay to make the roster in Denver.
I get teams. I'm with you because I get that teams go with 2 quarterbacks. Man, I think if I were an NFL coach, I'd be going with 3. You go through them so fast. Now, maybe you do want an extra roster spot, so you try to sneak them through waivers and stash them on the.
I don't think you can sneak anybody.
Yeah, right. Not a quarterback. Either want them or you don't.
No.
I would keep 3, and they've only got 3, so it's a different deal for Slovis in Indianapolis. They have 5. So
Trevor Riley tells the story of if you don't hear from us on Labor Day, you're good to go. He didn't hear from anybody. They're good to go. Well, then he gets there Tuesday, and they picked up somebody who got cut.
I thought it was on the team.
Right.
You were at 8 a.m., but by 9 a.m. it had changed.
Right. So
at 9:15, they're asking for your playbook.
Yeah. It's like that story I told to Kalani, meeting some Polynesian dude serving my sandwich in Hawthorne, California, and he was a big dude, and I asked him to play football. Yeah. So I went back and asked Kalani about him when he was defensive coordinator at Utah. He knew all about him. So I don't know that there's that many secrets and all that stuff. I think, Zach, the big thing for me is at some point, somewhere, sometime, Zach's going to get another shot. And what do you do with it then?
When the moment comes.
Yeah, you can't blame the Jets for the rest of your life. Not that he is doing that.
Right.
But there will be a time. And then you go from there. And, yeah, I mean, I hope they all make it. My most favorite player in the NFL is Britton Covey. Every punt return, I root for
break
him.
it.
Yeah.
To the house.
And now he's getting a little time as a receiver. If they throw his way, I hope he catches it and runs it all the way in. I don't care who he's playing. I don't care what the ramifications are. It's much easier for me to do that because I don't have a team.
Taysom Hill getting more touches in the preseason. 5 carries, 21 yards, and a touchdown. And lead blocker springing Jamal Williams for a big run. Williams 5 carries for 32 yards. Saints lost to the Niners 16-10. Cougars together in the backfield.
Having Taysom Hill on the field, to me, makes sense. Put him at center. It's like the Bob Knight thing. When the Trailblazers said they need a center, he said, play Jordan at center. You need a center? Play Taysom Hill at center.
He did just find that fullback spot, so why not?
Yes, this guy, I'll go to my grave insisting he's one of the best athletes I've ever seen.
Well, his own quarterback called him a Hall of Fame football player.
And my grave is coming sooner rather than later.
Oh, okay.
So I believe that Taysom Hill, I can only imagine Taysom Hill up there in Pocatello playing Little League football.
Coach, you got a really good team. Yeah, I got Taysom.
Must have been unbelievable just to see him dominate in a small town like that. Because I don't think that he didn't become a great athlete at 15. My guess is he was probably at 5 he was showing signs. At 10 he was on his way. Yeah.
Samson Nakua is in New Orleans too, so got a lot of local guys with the Saints.
Right, he got picked up.
Yeah, Samson's getting a bump because of his brother.
Yeah, who was he working out with? He was working out. Was it Kupp?
Cooper Kupp and Puka in L.A. when the Saints called him and said, "Hey, we're picking you up."
That'd be awesome. That's an awesome story, to be out of the league.
Well, and then the funny thing is, he was talking about. I said, "Puka's over there puking in the bushes while we're working out, and I'm getting calls from the New Orleans Saints. I'm signing with them."
Yeah, that'd be sweet. That would be the third brother to play in the NFL.
Correct. Kai's also played previously.
He bounced around a little bit.
He actually, funny thing is, Kai had a really, really good year in that UFL league this past spring, so he may have a chance to get picked up again.
And then, obviously, Puka's well on his way, and then they've got a freshman receiver at BYU. What's his, Tae
Nakua.
Tae.
Yep, he's actually had some moments in camp so far.
I've seen him.
Boise State announced that former American Fork High School star Maddox Madsen will be the Broncos' starting quarterback. He beat out the 5-star prospect and USC transfer Malachi Nelson in a quarterback battle for the Broncos. Now, Utah's been cranking out high school football players, turning them into college, in some cases pros, for a long time. But quarterback is one position where they hadn't broken through. But PK, they're starting to build a list there, too.
Yeah, I think that it's good that somebody else besides us puts some guys into the college ranks.
And by us, you mean DJ and PK?
We do it on a yearly basis.
Or you mean Corner Canyon?
Us. You're not part of the club, and it bugs you. I'm part of the club.
Yay.
I have inroads.
For another year.
I have, it'll last 3-4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as I want it. Now, I'm not going to be around that much longer, but as long as I want it, I have direct access. Access? That's the word. Yeah. Let's just say he picks up when I call.
All right.
Today's the first day of classes.
Back to it.
Yeah.
Yay. We also talked Major League Baseball, your Los Angeles Dodgers.
I blame you.
For what?
Because you texted me freaking Corbin Carroll, and then they haven't won since.
He hit a 2-run homer in the ninth to bail them out. They were down to their final strike, weren't they?
Well, yesterday, somebody hit a 3-run homer, and they still lost. They got swept by the Rays. The downfall has started.
Padres lost 2 or 3 in Colorado. They can't beat those guys. It's just a nightmare. They're all-time. In one of the games, they put up the winning percentage all-time there. It's like 37% or something pathetic. I can't remember the exact number.
They got their number.
They do.
Okay, but now they're gone.
Thank goodness. Already got swept by them earlier this year.
Yeah, irregardless.
Going to lose the division because they can't beat the Rockies.
Doesn't matter. Division is useless. If you have success in the playoffs, Dodgers will win division, and we'll see what they do in the postseason.
Kershaw looking good.
It's 2 good starts in a row.
6 shutout innings for him and a 2-1 win.
Yeah.
And Shohei hit his 39th homer. Drilled it into the bullpen. Effortless.
112 velo.
I'm still trying to figure out, good, mediocre, bad velo. And I didn't know you could hit a home run and the velo could be under 100, but it happened yesterday. Of course, it happened in Colorado, so I figure maybe it's the thin air. You just don't have to hit the ball as hard there.
Possibly. Yeah, but the triple digits is really good. It sort of relates to roughly pitching, MPH.
No, I thought you could hit a ball harder.
Oh, you can.
Yeah.
That's what, hence sorta.
Sorta.
You can.
So is it 10 miles an hour or 20 miles an hour better?
Depending on the individual. I mean, obviously, no one's throwing 112.
I read a whole think piece about what we were talking about on Friday or Thursday, whatever it was at the end of last week. We were talking about 6 innings. And so somebody went and did a story and talked to a bunch of executives. Okay, law of unintended consequences. If this is a rule, what happens?
Yes.
And they went with a whole wide range.
What do you got?
There was generally an acknowledgement that they will have to value control more and placement. You know, they have to change speeds and spot the ball.
Right, because now they can come in and just throw gas and then you're out.
But one executive, and they were all unnamed so that they could speak freely and all that, is like, the genie's out of the bottle. They will not go back on how hard you throw and on how nasty the breaking stuff is. And any move to temper that will be only slight. There were a lot of people who thought that the 4-run rule will just come in. You'll just leave your starter in until he gives up 4 runs. It'll just lead to more scoring. And the innings right now, they had the trend that the innings had gone over like the last decade. It dropped from you're pitching like 5.7 innings to 5.2. And in the minor leagues now, the guys coming up are pitching about 4.5 innings in a start. I mean, you can't really pitch a half. It's just what the math works out to.
My big concern and why I want to see it go in there is I don't like starting the relievers.
A lot of people talked about that, but that starters need to be like movie stars. You can see a good movie where you don't know anybody in the cast because it's just a good story. But basically, stars sell tickets.
Yeah,
and
but I mean, I don't think where that's
stars.
changed.
Well, I think you're in the minority there. I mean, there certainly are starters who sell tickets still. There are still big names, and there have been. I mean, Kershaw would be one of them.
There always will be. If you're good enough, but those guys don't grow on trees, man. You're not.
It seems like there are fewer
of them. If you've
them.
got 2 of them, you're in contention. Diamondbacks had 2 starting pitchers going into the postseason.
And they put in
a rookie, so they ended up with 3. But they went with bullpen games in the postseason. I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
That's on your management to come up with more guys.
DJ and PK, your feedback's next. Stay with us.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere. Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Cheer of the Week. Submit your nomination at KSLSports.com/contest. KSLSports.com/contest. And listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Cheer of the Week, sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals.
DJ and PK, 3 weeks into camp, more than a week to go before the games. What would you talk about now in the highest-rated award-winning morning show? PK, I told you earlier in the show the answers were all over the park. Are you ready?
Yes.
Mark, a better radio signal, or am I the only one?
I don't know, but I've heard about it. I don't listen because I'm in the studio.
Dan says you can't go wrong with politics and religion.
2 of my favorite topics. I'll be willing to discuss them any day, any night, anywhere, anytime, in the parking lot.
Thanks, Urban. In the parking lot. Greg, baseball.
Been very, very good to me. I'll talk baseball all day.
Jeffrey, PGA Tour Golf. Real in-depth stuff. We got to borrow the caddy from the weekend show from Real Golf Radio. Get the in-depth stuff.
I think we talk golf when it's appropriate to talk golf. It's a niche sport. I mean, all sports are niche to a degree, and golf is right there. It has a passion for sure, and we do talk it, but it has to be the appropriate time. Although I do think we should get Weersy on as they approach the President's Cup. He's the captain.
Nice. That'd be good. Dan says Cam Rising, of course. Duh.
Never heard of him.
Nah.
Seems like I've been doing that for 7 years.
That's because you have. You have.
Who retires first from Utah? Kyle Whittingham or Cam Rising?
No, either Cam or it's a tie, right?
I don't know. Keep coming up with these loopholes.
American Forks Maddox Madsen beat out USC transfer Malachi Nelson, the former number 1 recruit as Boise State starting quarterback. Just another example of the quality of high school football in Utah.
Right. We're no longer just putting punters into the college ranks.
Still putting in punters. No, we're not. Putting in offensive linemen. That's where this class is at. It's all about the offensive linemen.
Well, I think we think of the big Polynesian kid, but it's way, way beyond that.
That it is.
Yes. And that's cool. That's great. It's great for our state. It helps the kid in the moment, but I also think it helps give me benefit of the doubt going forward. And, I know people who teach, and then when the coaches come out, it's a potpourri. Big name coaches work through our area. That's great for the kids, great for the sport.
Right now, there's a wide range of schools that have commits, and of course, they can all change. There's plenty of time for kids to flip. But there's a wide range of schools that have recruited here. Cal, Stanford, Nebraska, ASU.
Well, I think you're talking about commits.
Oklahoma.
Everybody recruits here.
Everybody recruits here. These are the ones who've gotten commits.
You're talking commitments.
Commits.
Yes. That's the difference between recruiting and commitment. And then obviously there's another difference between signing. Yeah. And then there's another difference between staying.
And the number of kids recruited out of here does seem to grow every year.
That's sweet.
Yeah. Could be as many as 50 players this year when you track all the guys who are going to go to the Big Sky teams and down to Utah Tech and Southern Utah.
Yeah, wherever it might be. And then you got Snow still playing football.
Yep.
They're the lone junior college playing football in the state.
They are.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tragedy that junior college football has taken such a hit.
We really only had 2 here. And then there was one up in Idaho, obviously, with Rick. So kind of 3 regionally.
But there were several in the Phoenix
Arizona,
area. And they
6 or 8,
that
somewhere in there.
Big time, and that took a hit, and that sucks. Even if it's just the 2 years, I think you're better off doing it, boy or girl, in whatever sport it might be.
DJ and PK, we're all done. Jacob Benner coming up next right here on The Zone.